And here we are, the finale of the Arkham franchise. It has been a real trip getting here, and this was one game I was the most excited for, as it was the only one I had never played in any capacity. Arkham Knight is the last Rocksteady Arkham game and began its development in 2011, right after Arkham City's stellar launch. It was under development for 4 years and came out in 2015. That was the extent of my research for this game, as I really wanted to keep the blinders on if at all possible. Greetings gamers, my name is Riddler, and without further ado, let's go be Batman one more time. The story starts by putting to bed any chance we had of the Joker's return to being the clown prince of crime by letting the player start the very fires that will cremate his body. Oh, have I mentioned this game is going to be rated M? And this is one of those places that will most definitely come up. The Joker is no more, and we get narration from Mike Ehrmantraut telling us,
"This is how the Batman died."
Oh boy. I guess any hope of this being a happy story is also out the window. We zoom into a scene of a policeman enjoying some time at a diner. There are little Easter eggs littered about this place for you keen-eyed DC fans. Let me know if you spot any. Also, this is your jump scare warning for audio listeners. It's coming up pretty soon. The officer gets a few moments to himself before he is informed someone is smoking in the corner of the room. He agrees to check them out and makes his way there. The man is sitting in the booth, and when the officer moves to approach him, well...
Sir, there's no smoking in here.
Immediately, the diner changes to a veritable war zone, and we shift franchises to play Call of Duty Zombies with the patrons now turned into undead evil monsters. It doesn't last long before we are overwhelmed, and the scene pans out to show the CCTV footage of what are actually normal patrons suddenly believing that everyone around them is a nightmare. Scarecrow takes responsibility for the attack and gives Gotham warning that in one day he will do the same to the entire city. In an absolutely massive evacuation effort, Gotham is cleared away, leaving only the criminals and the police behind. Well, there is one more person still here, and with the greatest introduction he has ever gotten.
Tonight, Gotham's relying on one man to save us all.
Yeah, this game was going to be epic from the start. We fall with style toward the lit bat symbol, and wow, has the gliding system been updated. Gordon stands before the bat symbol and confirms that all hell has indeed broken loose. Crime is rampant throughout the streets, and we vow to help any way we can. To start, we will intervene in some commotion near Chinatown and rescue the missing police officer. When we arrive, we see the poor man surrounded by many goons and are given one of the best button prompts I've ever seen in a video game. We press it and summon the Batmobile. Yeah, I do enjoy that we get the Dark Knight Tumbler treatment for the Batmobile here. We very much even the odds and run the car we are chasing off the road to interrogate the man inside. He is somehow still conscious after the crash and tells us that he knows Scarecrow is using a safe house nearby. As it turns out, Ivy herself is here and we spring her out, only for us to give her the slip. Big surprise, the morally gray person turning on our hero to become one of the main bad guys of the... Oh, that's right. Our Batman is sick. She accepts this fate and lets us take her captive. Unfortunately, we do not get to go very far before enemy drones pursue. Here we get to exercise the tank part of the Batmobile. Deploying some stabilizers, we can drive the tank around, destroying the drones with wanton uncare for destruction, as they are all unmanned after all. No worries about accidentally killing somebody. Knocking all of the drones apart lets us open the back of the Batmobile and place Ivy inside for capture. We can then do the first of many crawls back to the GCPD with a criminal in the backseat. We gain access through the garage and place Ivy in a high security cell under Aaron Cash's care. He and Gordon give us a brief briefing of the state of the city, and some more criminals have shown up, some of which are unfamiliar to us at this point, and they bid us good luck. Okay, this is finally a point where we can take a breather and digest some of the craziness that is going on. This is for two reasons. One, the game at multiple points actually takes a break to tell us to do side quests, and this is one of those. And two, I just feel like the opening of this game is so strong I didn't want to ruin its flow. Let's backtrack a bit to some of the many new and updated systems thrown at us in this very short time. First, let's start with gliding. We go fast compared to the other games. The grapnel boost returns in this game, and coupled with the sheer speed we can go, traversal is very entertaining, almost like flying. I feel like you can truly never touch the ground if you chose not to. Let's talk about other minor details, like the Batmobile. I know. Looking back at this after playing it, I know a lot of people did not like the Batmobile. But man, if it isn't satisfying to drift around corners and smash into things in this indestructible monster. Boosts and drift give a unique way of traversing the game, and that was very absent in previous iterations. The tank portions are what I see get the most flack online, so let's address some of those arguments real quick. Yeah, I get it. The enemy using drones is a poor excuse for fighting Batman. Yeah, I get it. Batman having a literal tank might not mesh with some people's idea for the character. Yeah, I get it. People don't want to spend a long time in the car, which I argue if you don't really want to, you don't really have to. My answer to those arguments is this. We are playing a game in a universe where our main character dresses like a bat and can basically fly while surviving G-forces comparable to a fighter jet. Let's suspend our disbelief just a little bit for the fun of it. Back from the tangent, after dropping Ivy off at the precinct, we need to figure out Scarecrow's plan. Know the gist of it, but we need to find out where his operations are taking place so we can stop him. Oracle will be able to help us find some direction, and that means we need to stop at the clock tower, her current base of operations. We let ourselves in through the roof and activate the clock tower, turning it from cute hangout spot to Spy Master's haven. Oracle shows up notably changed from the last time we saw her, as she is now in her wheelchair. Fans of the comics will know why, but if you don't, sometime in this version of the Batverse, Joker shot Barbara, permanently paralyzing her. Barbara informs us that our best bet to finding Crane is to get a superpowered antenna to help us track his signal. The closest one we have access to is at the Panessa movie studios. Here we get to do one of the more interesting parts of not just Batman, but any video game ever? Car parkour. Parkour? Anyway, we use the Batmobile to scale Panessa Studios and get introduced to one of the Batmobile's new tools, the winch. This can pull us up the side of the movie studio and is something that we will use in various ways. Think of it a lot like a USB containing the best malware in the world that can also pull a 5-ton tank and send electricity by the gigawatt. We power the studio, but need access to another large antenna to correctly triangulate the signal. This leads us to yet another area, with some of the station workers being held hostage by armed henchmen. Continuing our tutorial, we learn about predator encounters in this game. This system, as everything seems to be in this entry, is streamlined compared to the others. Batman moves quick while crouching, takedowns feel much more fluid and intuitive, and after playing with our food outside, we get airdropped a new toy. Rightly, Batman has assessed that we will need a suit upgrade to deal with everything that tonight will bring. And what true Batman media doesn't have an epic suit-up sequence? This armor is outfitted with the ability to take more Gs, allowing us to upgrade our flying beyond what was possible in previous games, as well as increased armor potential. Equipped with our new fit, we get a tutorial for, well, I'll let you see it. Yeah, if you have any question about Batman being cool, you can put those worries aside. Fear takedowns lets you at first level take down 3 enemies, provided that you are undetected and they are relatively close together. This is such a cool update to the Predator system, which previously saw changes mostly in the form of gadgets. Slight spoiler alert, fear takedowns only get better from here. With access to 2 functioning antennas, we can track down Scarecrow's location. Looks like he is using Ace chemicals to disperse his weapon. We inform Gordon and meet him at the bridge leading into the facility. We get ready to assault it and rescue the hostages, but before we do, a helicopter approaches, blowing up the bridge and preventing us and the police from entering. The pilot seems very much to want us dead and was about to pull the trigger, even as we stare him down. But Scarecrow calls him off and shuts the door to Ace chemicals behind him. Climbing up on the nearby roof, we can steadily fight our way towards the control panel, where unfortunately one of the hostages was killed. We use the console to open the door, then control the Batmobile remotely to jump the gap into the facility. We use the Bat tank to punch our way deeper into the facility until we reach one of the alive hostages. It is at this point we are again ambushed by the figure from the helicopter earlier. He is known as the Arkham Knight. He points out to his goons Batman's weaknesses, proving that he has great knowledge of Batman and his tactics. Suspicious, but we don't have a ton of time to think about it as we have to stop Scarecrow. Using the remote control Batmobile, we push through these goons, then using the power winch and the remote, we pull obstacles out of Batman's way, as well as using the Batmobile to operate a destroyed elevator, letting us reach the bottom floors. Here we clear out all the living hostages so we can punch through the wall, and with a combination of tank and Batman amazing skills for persuasion, We reach Scarecrow as he prepares to deploy his weapon. Scarecrow has grown absolutely terrifying since we last saw him, which was all the way back in Arkham Asylum in the hands of Killer Croc as he was getting thrown into the river. Wounds on his face are now covered by burlap, and wow, I grew up with Lord of the Rings and Fringe, but John Noble makes an amazing Scarecrow as well. Scarecrow, in typical supervillain fashion, tells us that it is far too late and the bomb will cover the entire eastern seaboard. Evacuating Gotham was just a way to ensure there were less people in his way as he progressed through his plan. We threaten him to stop the device, but he plays on one of Batman's few weaknesses, the Bat family. Scarecrow tells us that Barbara is now in danger. We desperately try to contact her, but before she can agree to escape, we are cut off. Scarecrow has used this opportunity to slip away and leave us locked in the mixing chamber. Batman has two choices: leave and try to escape the blast, or stay and try to put suppressant chemicals into the mixture to reduce the destructive potential of the blast. Being Batman, it isn't much of a choice. In order to remove the coolants and put them in, you gradually have to apply pressure. Playing on a gamepad, this isn't too bad. Just pull a little on each analog stick so we can add the correct chemicals. I wouldn't know how to do this on mouse and keyboard though. Alfred pleads with us to leave, to get out and regroup, but Batman ignores him, saying goodbye. After each rod is put in, the blast radius continues to go down, and the room gets more and more unstable. When we finally grab the fourth one, though...
Miss me?
We are left confused and quickly change to CCTV footage of a helipad near the Panessa movie studios. Gordon exits the copter and heads for a nearby door. The gate grants him access based on his voice, where he runs into an elevator. It's when he reaches the bottom that we see even more problems. Several occupied cells await him. To his surprise, these people very much do not want to be here. They also appear to be afflicted with some sort of strange disease that is causing their faces to change. The music here reminds me a lot of Jaws as Gordon moves from cell to cell until he finds the last one, abandoned. And then...
Batman.
Yeah, this really shows how terrifying Batman can be to others. We see through his eyes so much, we forget that other people wouldn't hear or see him if he chose not to be noticed. Batman explains that these were all victims of Joker's donations during the Arkham City incident. Their blood is infected with that of the Joker. These people are presenting signs of the same condition that Joker had. Batman is currently working on a cure, and Gordon pleads to let the people go, as this is very outside the law. He relents when Batman says that he's close to a solution. At last, he asks Batman about the final cell. Who does that belong to? All Bruce has to say is that that person will be there soon. But we as the audience know, Batman is sick. We come to in the mixing chamber with Joker taunting us. How this is happening is a little confusing at the moment. With many more questions than we have answers, we escape from Ace Chemicals just in time for it to explode behind us. Enough of the neutralizing agent in the mix to prevent it from completely destroying the East Coast, but definitely enough to destroy the island it's on. With Scarecrow's plans temporarily thwarted, we need to talk to Gordon and let him know that Barbara is missing. Understandably, he does not take too kindly to this, as he had no knowledge that Barbara was in fact Batgirl or Oracle. We escort Gordon to the clock tower and find Barbara's abandoned wheelchair. Joker chides us, eternally seeming like he will be the devil on our shoulder for this playthrough. There is a moment where Gordon realizes that Barbara has always been working with us. That's the reason she was put in the wheelchair and targeted by these villains. Gordon leaves, giving us a punch and throws the bat phone back at us before he storms away, saying that whatever it is he's doing, he'll do it himself. Joker, of course, is only amused by our suffering. Ignoring him for now, we start the hunt for Barbara by scrubbing through all the nearby CCTV footage facing the clock tower. We can see the Arkham Knight took Barbara, and zooming in on the treads can filter the Batmobile sensors to follow those specific tires and follow in their trail. We do so, moving from one of the three main islands to the other, where Arkham Knight's drone and militia presence is far stronger. As we progress, we see drones airdropping mines on the road. This introduces us to one of our many side objectives for this game, disarming the militia explosives deployed on roads and around the islands. The controls to the bridge between us and Miyagani Island are currently inaccessible. We have to glide across and reactivate them from the other side. Doing so requires a short flight to the control panel, then activating it gives us control to bridges. After flicking the switch, the true villain makes his appearance.
Riddle me this. Why would a Batman visit an abandoned orphanage?
The man with who, at this point, I am a very personal vendetta, the Riddler. He chides, taunts, kidnaps our girlfriend. Truly, he is the final boss of the entire series. We cannot let this continue. We go to the orphanage, beat up the guards out front, and interrogate who we can before we head inside. Selina is locked in the room beyond. See her stuck to a chair. Releasing her, the Riddler sends in his minions, robots with more health and new moves from his typical goons. They also look a lot like Wonderbots, but souped up from the previous game. Defeating these new enemies, Riddler will reward us with the location of another of his trials, and then we can go. Unfortunately though, Catwoman must stay behind as she cannot leave without the explosive collar going off. This is the last we will see of Riddler for a while, but we have his challenges unlocked to do at our leisure. Returning to the Batmobile, we can then progress from Founders to Miyagani Island and continue our search for Barbara. Before long, we come upon the scene of a car crash and stretch our detective muscles to find out what really happened. Like Arkham Origins, we can now construct an augmented reality portion of the crime scene to be able to tell exactly what happened. In this case, we find out Barbara maced the driver in an attempt to escape. This sent the car careening off the road and into a ditch where the driver died. Unfortunately, the Arkham Knight survived the crash and was able to follow Barbara and take her before she could crawl too far. Lucky for us, Barbara was able to stash a data chip nearby for us to find. We cannot decrypt it out in the field, but can reach Wayne Tower. That way we can have the assistance of Lucius Fox to get through this data card. Gliding over to the roof, we retract the shutters and input the data into our computer. This lets us nail down the Arkham Knight's rough location. Fox then informs us we have access to an upgrade for our car and can choose between two different options, one more offensive or one more defensive. The choice doesn't particularly matter as we will get all of them by the end of the game. For now, we know where to find the Knight, a tunnel network underneath the island. Going to the marked location, we can have Alfred open the front door, only to have another security door block our path. We can, however, get through a nearby ventilation area on foot, with Joker naturally berating us the entire way. The Joker verbal abuse is very distracting for the main story, but does tell us to take time and reflect. It makes Batman think about what it would be like to be more like Joker. I know a lot of people did not like Joker's place in this game, and I understand that. He did die in the second game. We were supposed to get a game about somebody else in Arkham Origins, but it ended up being Joker. And now in the opening game, we burn Joker's body, and yet he is still here. The way I think about this is the story of these two characters. I'll elaborate more on this in a bit. We emerge from the verbal assault into an area that has enough firepower to be considered a relatively small army. Tanks, armored cars, and weapons line the entirety of this underground space. When we finally reach the control room at the far end, we are ambushed by none other than the Arkham Knight himself. He gets the better of us and leaves us wounded in the control room, telling his goons to come and finish us off. At this point, he has to be toying with us. He got the drop on Batman. He could have killed us, or at least tried to himself. He has to know a bullet to the stomach won't really stop the Batman, right? We clean up the goons and escape. The Arkham Knight, somehow surprised by our ability to defeat his common soldiers, takes off in one of his APCs, the big armored cars. We give chase. And pursuit in this game is another of the many uses for the Batmobile. In order to defeat an armored vehicle, you have to do enough damage to it to disable the car. This is done in a few ways: smashing into them directly, running them into obstacles, or using some of the Batmobile's homing rockets. Any way you do it, once they reach low health, they will stop driving and be disabled. In this particular case, once we flip the car, we go to confront the Knight, but he isn't even in here. We do interrogate the occupant, who is a little resistant at first. We give him a little pressure with the assistance of the Batmobile, and finally we get something useful out of him. The Penguin is somehow involved in all this. Well, if anything was going on here, Penguin was likely to have a grimy flipper in it anyway, so at least we have something of a lead. At this point, Lucius tells us that our upgrade is ready for pickup, and with only limited information about Scarecrow and the Knight's operations, we head to retrieve it. We get the upgrade and are immediately assaulted by drones. Defeating them, Alfred contacts us to let us know that Nightwing, or Dick Grayson, is here from Bloodhaven, tracking Penguin and the North Refrigeration smuggling operation. We meet Dick Grayson above the ferry terminal, where he explains that he has been tracking the Penguin movements for some time now. We ask him where the trucks Penguin is using to smuggle things are, and he points us to roughly 5 feet away because he's already tracked it down for us. He also gives us our new tool, the updated Disruptor, which is now so much more fun than the previous iterations and already has more applications. In this case, we can use it like a sniper rifle to jam guns from a distance. Hitting the guns twice will make the guns explode when shot instead of just jamming. In addition to all these, it can also jam weapon boxes, rendering goons unable to retrieve weapons from them and also stunning them, similar to when we shoot a gun twice. We immediately use our new tool to place a tracking dart on the truck, take down the guards outside, and then give the car a little encouragement. Once they are sufficiently spooked, we give chase, gliding through the city long enough for them to think they have somehow lost track of us. Once they are sure they have escaped the literal Batman, they will go to their base of operations. We peacefully infiltrate the base and have a good discussion with our friend Penguin. He tells us that Scarecrow is looking for a man named Simon Stagg. a guy who owns a large pharmaceutical company. Working with Dick, we clear out the room and Nightwing offers to keep tailing Penguin drivers for us. We agree and contact Alfred for details on this stag. It appears that he owns 2 large airships, both of which are currently floating above Founders Island, an area where we currently cannot take the Batmobile or the Batwing due to the high militia presence. We can, however, go ourselves. Stag's airships are tethered to the tall buildings of Founders, making getting on top of the first one very simple to get to. However, there is a nearby watchtower that would make approaching too difficult, so we have to remove that from the equation first. Taking down the goons guarding the watchtower isn't too difficult, but we do have a new element to contend with. A henchman who can detect Batman's use of detective mode. These aren't too hard to play around, but it is something that forces the sparing use of something that is incredibly overpowered, a great fix to the problem of detective mode always being on in the previous games. This, in conjunction with an enemy drone flying by, can lead to some difficulty that was very absent from previous game Predator encounters. Destroying all the henchmen, we use our explosive gel to take down the watchtower. Unfortunately, at this point we do not have all the tools we need to infiltrate the airship, but Batman does have a cache on top of a nearby tower. Accessing it, we can see that he has a full suite of gadgets here. It makes sense that Batman would be prepared just in case he was caught in this area without his tools. Now, fully equipped, we can make our way to the top of the airship and let ourselves in. The hacking device in this game is pretty much as we expect for the Arkham series. You twist the analog sticks to solve a rudimentary puzzle. However, it does get some added functionality in this game. Inside the airship, we come upon another goon in control of a small drone. Just like the ones we previously saw atop the watchtower. We can use the PS Vita to borrow the drones, or blind them, allowing us to ignore them for some time. In addition to that, the remote hacking device lets us tilt the airships side to side to solve motion-related puzzles, or use crates to blast open doors. This lets us slowly start pushing our way through the airship until we reach a room filled with goons accosting poor Mr. Stag. We dive in and wipe the floor with all of them to get to the scientist. We want answers, and get to have a candid discussion with Simon Stagg before one of the guards gets back up, and then another of them, and then another, and now they're all standing. We attack them as we can't have them interfering with our work, but each time we do so, they fall without a fight. And is that Joker? Are they all Joker? It seems the presence of Joker in our psyche is making things much more difficult than it would have first seemed. He's getting harder and harder to ignore as his psyche starts pushing on ours. Unfortunately, while we were punching the air, Arkham Knight's men took Stag away to the other airship, leaving us stranded on this side. We could try to cross, but a gun turret prevents us from moving across that gap without filling us with bullets. For now, our best bet is to move farther through this airship and try to find a way over. Eventually, through great crawling and tilting the ship back and forth, we come to a large room where Stag seemed to be doing his experiments. Clearing out this room, we can see that Stag had a lot of resources at his disposal. The area we are in has animal testing cells filled with monkeys. The leftovers of whatever his experiments were strewn all over the place. This is definitely not a government-regulated facility. I wonder if airships fit inside FDA jurisdiction. The controls are locked behind Stag's biometrics. Without his handprint, we cannot access his computer. But what we can access are the security cameras for this room, and use the various footages to find where Stag has pressed his hand against things. Finding 4 such places lets us walk around and scan them to construct a passable print of his hand. We holo project this onto our gloves and use it to access his computer. Well, we cannot disable the gun turrets on the second ship, but we can use this ship's guns to clear them out of our way. With that problem no longer an issue, we can dive onto the second ship, which is somehow even more disturbing than the first one. At least a dozen cells line the outside of the ship, each with an audio recording detailing tests, or far worse, failures. With our newfound handprint, we can easily get to the control station of this ship. Stag is being held in a cell just in front of the control room. Defeating his guards lets us talk to him for some precious information about the Cloudburst before he gets dosed with fear toxin. We knock him out, letting him sleep off the psychedelics, and head into the room where Scarecrow awaits us. One problem: there are 2 Scarecrows. Thanks to Joker's apparitions, we cannot be sure which is the correct one, meaning all we have to do is guess. We do so, but unfortunately we guess wrong, and Scarecrow injects us with some of his toxin. This lets Joker out to play. We fight the militia, but without Batman's restraint. And when it comes to the final man, sitting on the ground afraid, we would have killed him. Scarecrow sees this. The brutality we exhibit scares him. Something has changed, and he is terrified. Deciding a physical conflict with Batman in this state is not worth his time, he takes this opportunity to remove the Cloudburst from the tip of the airship with him still on it. We move to pursue, but the Arkham Knight intervenes, launching rockets at us while his boss escapes. Scarecrow takes this moment to broadcast to us the location of Barbara Gordon, meaning that we can either pursue the Cloudburst or our friend. We choose Barbara, diving back into Chinatown and making for the safe room. Joker chastises our inability to save her through bulletproof glass, and Scarecrow, being the theatric that he is, doesn't give us the chance to save her. He floods the room with gas as Barbara comes to. She sees us, but Scarecrow tells her that we are a monster come to kill her. With the gun on the counter, she tries to shoot at us, but with the glass the way that it is, she sees no other way to escape the monster.
You will bring death to all who follow you.
With Barbara dead, we are now on the war path to stopping Scarecrow. The best way to do that is to find a way to fight the toxin, which right now is paying a visit to Poison Ivy, as she is immune to Scarecrow's neurological attacks. She agrees that we don't have much choice and comes with us. On her suggestion, we move to Miyagani Island to find an ancient plant that she can use as a vessel for her powers. On our way there, Cash alerts us to the existence of a new tank enemy prowling the area, the Cobra. Now, when you tell me that there is a Batmobile that can turn into a tank in this game, I would assume all of the times you are in that vehicle would be wanton destruction fests. But no. Rocksteady has turned that on its head by putting stealth missions in the Batmobile sections. Cobra tanks are very much bigger than we are and have massive guns capable of destroying the Batmobile in only a few blasts. They do, however, have a few weaknesses. They have a spot on the rear of the tank that we can shoot to defeat them, but it does take some time to lock in on the correct location. Defeating one, though, will alert others nearby to converge on the last known position, meaning that after we get through one, we have to get out of dodge before we get surrounded. Once we clear through the armored units, Ivy takes her position. We need to locate more roots of the plants for Ivy to have her full effect. Lucius Fox calls in another upgrade to the Batmobile that helps us use sonar to locate them, making getting that upgrade our next objective. Unfortunately, there are several uninvited guests underneath Wayne Tower that we have to deal with before we can do that. Clearing them out, we can get the Batmobile upgrade. This lets us send pulses through the earth to get a rough impression of where the roots are underneath us. Proceeding through the city, we will find the nexus point of these roots. There, Ivy sprouts a massive plant from the ground, which is promptly under attack from militia men. We deal with them, allowing Ivy to solidify her hold on these powerful plants. With Ivy in a firm position on Miyagani Island, we can make a forced push into Founders Island. To prepare for this, we stop by the Batcave. We talk with Alfred on our way down if we're gonna tell Tim Drake about Barbara, and Batman settles on no, we will not communicate with him. I'm sure this won't bite him in the butt at any time. With Robin's help, we plan our attack on Founders Island. To take over the island, we need to destroy the flying drones, knock out all the watchtowers, and finally take out all the goons guarding the missile launcher control room. We maneuver the Batmobile onto a nearby building, and then initiate a fight with the Knight himself. Here, Batman asks a question that we have been wanting to know all game. This sets up his identity as being very important, and fans of the series or comics might be able to figure out who this is by process of elimination. For now, the Arkham Knight escapes, leaving us to fend off his henchmen. Now we can drive the tank up to our location and take down the missile launcher, giving the Batwing free access to patrol the island as our eyes in the sky. While the Batwing is scanning for signs of the Cloudburst, we will need the clock tower's computing to track that signal. With our foothold on Founders Island established and the airspace in our control, we can backtrack there to see what we can find. We analyze signs of the Cloudburst, but are promptly interrupted by Harley Quinn as she assaults the Panessa movie studios. With Robin fighting for his life, we abandon the clock tower and head over there immediately. Unfortunately, we cannot go through our own front door as Harley has changed the gate to respond to her voice instead of ours. However, we are Batman, and Batman has two things in abundance: money and tools. We make use of our high-tech stuff to create the voice synthesizer. This will allow us to tune voice samples enough to create an imitation of Harley. This lets us not only get through the door, but also makes tapping into radio communications and giving them false orders a viable strategy. While Joker laments that he was likely the one holding Harley back from her true potential, which is a whole other can of worms we probably won't talk about, we can take the elevator down, and down, and down, and down. That sound is still enough to send a shiver through me. Joker talks more about us, forcing us into introspection, and berating us for not telling Robin about Barbara, as they were romantically involved. I know I've been relatively shut up about the Joker, but now while we're in the infinitely dropping elevator, let's take a moment to discuss. We know he is a figment of Batman's imagination, but I like to think of him more of a sliver of Bruce's psyche that could be the Joker. Every piece of Batman media loves to remind us that these two characters are very close together. Batman is only one bad day from being just like the Joker. Joker has been steadily gaining more and more control and is able to show up more often and for longer. With Scarecrow's fear toxin, he's able to come into almost direct control of Batman's body and strike out. It seems like with enough time, the Joker would consume the Batman. And if the Joker becomes Batman, with all of Batman's strengths and resources, well, there's no telling the destruction that would unleash upon the world. Joker has been insinuating more and more that they share control and let the Joker out a bit. Joker's been all over the place this game. He's directly intervened, moving Barbara's gun closer to her. He's also given us flashbacks showing what happened to Barbara. It's dangerous to think what will happen if he wins. We finally reach the end of the never-ending elevator to see Robin doing his best to hold off a sea of Harley's henchmen. We join the fray in another of the duo fights to defeat the men. Robin informs us that each of the inmates except Henry, who so far has seemed immune to the Joker effects, have gone deeper into the movie studios. We need to round up our test subjects again. Henry remains in the control center, and we go out to get the crazies. First up is Christina Bell. She seems to exemplify Joker's lust for Batman? Lust for attention from Batman, maybe? Something along those lines. Whichever way it is, she really wants us to get to her. She is currently in Studio B, guarded by a bunch of henchmen who are just as unsure about her as we are. Taking out the henchmen with the help of Robin in a duo stealth mission, we can open the door and knock her out as she attacks. Well, that's one down. Robin takes her back to the cells while we make our way to the second victim, and this is not where we are supposed to be. Here we get an introduction to a Joker flashback, where we get snippets of his memory. The memory of torching the Robin before Tim, Jason Todd. They are rough, so suffice to say that Jason, once Robin, was captured by Joker, and Joker treated him about as kindly as you would expect. After this flash sequence, we see Tim running up to us, confused as he questions if we are alright, and Batman, being him, lies to his face. Albert King, the boxer, is in Stage A and is the embodiment of Joker's surprising physicality. King is a professional athlete, strong and very skilled in combat. He is what I would consider a duo boss fight. Doing damage to him directly is impossible, and goons will keep spawning, so the best course of action is to dodge around, beat up the goons around him to build up the duo takedown bar before we can finally use that move on King. It's a relatively simple concept, but the duos are one of the game's strengths, and the boss fight is super fun. It doesn't take long to RKO the King, and we let Robin take him back. Really, this is just a testament to the strength of Tim Drake at this point, having to squat this man up and then walk him all the way back to the holding cell. Last up is Johnny Charisma, who, well, he embodies Joker's charisma and theatrical nature. On our way to him, though, we run into yet another scene of Jason Todd, one where we see how the Joker has held him for untold months. Todd is still holding out, but relentless tormenting from the Joker is slowly breaking him down. The scene ends with Joker wielding a brand in his hand. Back in reality, very shaken, we make our way to the room just before the stage. In order to open the door, we have to access the CCTV footage for the area and get the code. Problem, Charisma knew there was a camera and instead covered the code. Lucky for us, he isn't as smart as he thinks he is, and he was standing next to a mirror. Reversing the code lets us gain access. Robin sneaks around the side as Johnny says that this is a show for only Batman. He invites us on stage and we happily oblige. It seems that he is wearing an explosive vest, and any disturbance means he will blow it. There also appear to be explosives all over the room. He starts spinning the stage, ready to perform, but Joker says that if anyone's going to perform for the Batman, it's going to be him.
Take it away, boys. Take me on home to the asylum. Never alone in the asylum.
I know I just watched Joker brutalize a Robin, but man, did this give me just a bit of a smile. Just knowing that they had Mark Hamill in a sound booth serenading Batman as the Joker. It's a hilarious song and well worth a listen to, but I don't want to get striked, so let's focus. While Joker sings of our history together, we play as Robin, sneaking around to the various points of the area, defusing the explosives set on each of the barrels. Once all of them have been disarmed, we can run up and disable the vest draped around Charisma. This ends the sequence and gives us our final victim to bring back. We make our way back to the control room to find the route covered with Harley's goons. Jumping into the grate, we can hide and use the vocal synthesizer to spoof Harley's voice to get them to open the gate for us. Only problem is Harley walks in, making us using her voice a little awkward. We stay hidden in the floor while Robin walks right into the trap. Harley, wielding a very large gun, paces around Robin until we have our chance right now. Taking down Harley lets us carry her and Robin to carry Johnny back to the cells. Harley is less than excited about it though. We put Johnny in his cells, but find Belle and King already dead. As it turns out, Henry was not immune, but is instead an example of Joker's propensity for deception. We exist at a standoff for Henry while he executes Charisma. He's about to do the same to the Batman when he notices the flare of green in our eyes and stops. He recognizes the Joker in us and instead turns the gun on himself. At this point, Robin finally understands. He knows the last cell is for us and asks us to get in the cell as he knows that if we go rogue, he would be unable to stop us. We reluctantly oblige. As soon as we enter, Robin gets contacted by Alfred notifying him that an assault on the movie studios is imminent. Robin goes to complete our mission, leaving us in the cell. We wait a while, take a look around, and then we turn to see Jason Todd, meaning we are again in another Joker flashback. We exit the cell and get to see the reason why I think this game is rated M for mature. Poor Jason has been with the Joker long enough to be basically brainwashed. Joker, wielding a video camera and taunting us, asks Todd the quintessential question: who is the man under the cowl? Jason, now long since broken, goes to answer the question.
Never could stand a tattletale.
Joker is brutal. He has never really cared about Batman's identity. It didn't matter to him. All that mattered was breaking down Jason Todd. Presumably, this is a video he has sent to Batman, so Batman has seen this before. The flashback fades away and leaves us at the moment right before we are about to enter the cell. Do we leave Tim to solve it on his own? Instead, we put Tim in the cell. He naturally protests, of course, and tries to contact Alfred. We turn off his communicator and tell Alfred that he is fine, effectively removing him from the equation. A special note from Future Red here: you can talk to Robin and inform him about Barbara's fate. I don't have footage of it from either playthrough, but I highly suggest looking it up as it's some of the best voice acting in the franchise. After we are done imprisoning our friends, we head out ready to hunt for the Cloudburst. We stop real quick nearby for another Batmobile upgrade, and then head over to Miyagani Island, where Ivy has started overtly attacking militia drones. The Arkham Knight has now sent huge amounts of armored units at us, and we have to defend Ivy. Once the baby tanks have been dealt with, the Knight will send in the bigger ones. Defeating them by sleuthing around in the tank, we can move to save Ivy from her incredibly poor position and take her back to the GCPD. Scarecrow comes on the loudspeaker as we try to convince Ivy to return, but not before Alfred calls us to tell us the Batwing has located the Cloudburst, in the hands of the Arkham Knight himself. Without so much as a threat, the Knight detonates the Cloudburst and fear toxin covers all of Gotham. Riots break out immediately as the population now sees each other as complete nightmares. Ivy tells us her plants are dying, and even though they should be immune, so much toxin will slowly kill them. Ivy stays with the plant, causing herself great pain, but doing her best to absorb the toxin as much as she can while we figure out how to reverse these terrible side effects. With all of Gotham's floor basically lava, the Batmobile battery fried, we have to stay up on the high ground and glide to find Stag. He created the Cloudburst. Logic dictates that he will likely know how to reverse the effect. Gliding over the city, we can return to the airship through the hole left behind by the Cloudburst removal. The Knight's militia are also scouring the place for Stag, so we have to punch or stealth our way through them until we can finally find him. He isn't where we left him in the cage, so we go hunting. We rip away some pieces of the floor, and there he is. He explains the reason vehicles don't work in the Cloudburst is because they need a generator for something called a Nimbus field. Without this, any vehicle power source would be immediately fried. He has one on hand and offers to lend it to us. We happily take it, shoving him in one of the absurd cages with his poor experiments. With our very own Nimbus 3000, we head back to above where we left our vehicle, and Joker is sitting there waiting for us. We need the Batmobile to have any chance against the Knight, but any time we spend in the cloud of toxin will send us closer and closer to losing control in favor of the Joker. Without much of a choice, in we go.
Need to remove the power core slowly, or the failsafe lock will kick in.
We hit the cloud and are met with the chaos of all the criminals still in Gotham fighting each other and the screams of the riots echoing through the air. We approach the car and have to again gingerly remove the old power matrix to install the new one we got from Stag. All the while, Joker is heckling us, getting stronger. A small detail, when we first meet Joker, his makeup is patchy and he's visibly wounded. The closer he is to control, the more he looks healed and fresh. And right now, he looks pretty healed to me. In an agonizingly slow fashion, we replace the power matrix, fending off a goon that gets too close, and finally use the Batmobile to clean the air of the cabin. Joker doesn't like this, as he was very close to control this time. Ignoring him for now, we drive through the smoke and get to work on fixing this mess. Contacting Ivy, we get a location from her of where to access more of the ancient plants. We use the sonar pings again to find their nexus point, this time next to the church, and the roots are too far beneath the ground for us to access, so we need an alternative route. Port Adams nearby has a subway tunnel that runs under the city, making it our best bet. Inside the port walls, we find the Knight's forces are already waiting for us with drones on patrol. Defeating them, we can reactivate the elevator and head underground. Joker tries to convince us that we aren't making much of a difference and that there's no point in doing what we're doing, but we are the Batman, so we push through. The subway tunnels are wrought with locked doors, patrolling tanks, tube-shaped obstacles, and small physics puzzles for us to traverse through before we finally reach our destination. This finally lets us gain access to the ancient plant, which also thankfully gives us a lift up to the surface after we awaken it. The militia respond with a full 40 drone invasion force after us. With our new upgrades and Ivy support though, we eventually come out on top. The Knight doesn't take too kindly to this, issuing us a personal challenge on Bleak Island to settle this once and for all. We drive over and raise the bridges behind us. No one is leaving this island until this is figured out. To begin, we have to clear his escort of Cobra tanks. Doing this is the same that we've done before. Sneak up behind them, shoot them in the back, move out of the way before the other ones get near. Once they have all been cleared away, we can scout out the Arkham Knight and his Cloudburst. There are 4 weak spots on his tank, each of which will need to be destroyed to incapacitate the vehicle. Welcome to our Batmobile boss fight. The strategy is relatively similar to taking out Cobra tanks. First, you move around until you get into the tank's blind spot, home in on the target of choice, and fire to do damage. Every time you do this, the Knight will give chase, and his tank is significantly faster than your average Cobra vehicle, and he can shoot while moving at high speeds. The best chance for success is to take a shot at a weak point, boost and turn into alleyways until the Knight gives up. Do this enough times, and the main weapon of the tank will be destroyed. The Knight now gives up all pretense of prowling around and will always be following and attacking in a last-ditch effort to defeat us. Some dodging of the missiles and shooting of the weak points at the front of the tank will disable the vehicle, ending the fight. We move in and pull the Knight from the wreckage of the destroyed tank, finally able to get our answers. But of course, before we do that, Joker's hallucinations stop us. The Knight took full advantage of the confusion, and by the time we come to, he is already gone. Alfred is now very suspicious of our manic episodes, but again, we being Bruce Wayne don't want to project our problems onto others. Really starting to think that if Batman let his friends in a little more, things might turn out a little different. I wonder if there's a game about that as a plot point. But Batman's emotional state is a topic for later. With the Cloudburst destroyed, we can return to Ivy, who is currently utilizing the plants we gave her to clean up the air. We see the last of the toxin be destroyed, and Ivy finally relinquished control of the ancient plant. Fixing Gotham finally expended all of her energy, and in the arms of Batman, someone she had been enemies for as long as we could remember, slowly fades away into the wind. This is a great ending to her character, and honestly did make me a little sad. In her place, the plants stay and finish her work, leaving Gotham free of fear toxin, and the Cloudburst unable to send out more. With our allies falling down around us or locked in cages, we have nothing to do but assault the militia stronghold to put an end to Scarecrow's machinations once and for all. We make a quick pit stop to the GCPD communications room and decrypt a message sent by the SWAT channels. As it turns out, our good pal Gordon has found Scarecrow's lair. Alfred lets us know that the building has been without power for some time, but it's a good thing the GCPD has a familiar old friend for us in the armory. The police officers deliberate as we leave with the REC if they will stop us, and rightly agree it's for the best that they don't. With the intel on Gordon's location and the remote electrical charge in hand, off we go. The militia base is located in the middle of Founders Island, inside one of the department stores. The front door is sealed shut, meaning we have to find an alternative way inside. Luckily, there is a side route nearby. We have to use the remote electrical charge to remove electricity from the pool of water, letting us sneak underneath the large group of enemies. Gordon, unfortunately, is dragged deeper into the complex, meaning we cannot save him right now. We hack open the gates from the inside and use the Batmobile to take the guards down. Now the true infiltration begins. The department store is several layers of gadget puzzle and fights as we get deeper and deeper into the ground. It's hard to summarize this section, but let's give it a go. Each floor requires us to take a stop on the outer ring to solve some sort of puzzle, fight some enemies, or sometimes both. These can range from activating a console to crashing a militia party with upwards of 20 people. After each of these, we can lower the Batmobile floor by floor until it reaches the bottom. At the bottom, we have to then unhitch the Batmobile, locking us into the trajectory of the story. We keep pushing our way through the tunnels, and then...
Behold the Underminer! I am always beneath you, but nothing is beneath me!
Welcome to our second Batmobile boss fight. We start with immediately needing to run away, as he is undamaged by any conventional means. When we reach the end of the tunnel, the drill runs into explosive, collapsing the tunnel on top of him and doing a fair bit of damage to his health bar. I think we just figured out how to beat this thing. Throughout this area, there will be sections that branch off, giving us short obstacle courses to complete. At the end of each, there will be more of these explosives. In order to get the Knight to follow you, you need to make sure he sees you. Or if he's passing by, give him a little love tap with a cannon just to let him know you're here. Then you can take him on the chase through the tunnels and do some real serious damage to him. After 3 of these tunnels, Alfred contacts us to let us know we can now go through the sealed door and make our escape. We finally get to go through it, and then we are stuck. With the Knight in front of us and a stone wall behind us, we eject from the Batmobile and can only watch as it is crushed under the weight of the drill. Not gonna lie, after spending so much time with that thing, this is a pretty sad sight to behold as well. It feels like we kind of lost an extension of our character a little bit. Leaving the lament for our friend, we continue through the tunnels until we come upon the men who are holding Gordon. Or should I say, were holding Gordon? We get ready to release our friend and are confronted again by the Knight.
Who are you? dead.
The knight is none other than Jason Todd, or the Red Hood for those of you versed in the lore of the animated shows and the comics. Yes, he survived the encounter with Joker and as a broken shell of his former self, sought out to kill the Batman, joining with Scarecrow to help achieve this. It explains his in-depth knowledge of Batman's tactics and mechanics. Batman is obviously taken aback by this, assuming Jason was dead. Jason, however, will have none of it, and we start the second part of his boss fight. Jason vanishes and reappears at a high vantage point with a high-powered rifle. He sends goons after us, including another wrench in our plans, soldiers wearing armor that cannot be seen by detective vision. The enemy variety in Predator mode really makes this far more varied and difficult than the previous games. Slowly sneaking our way underneath Jason, we can grapple up to his vantage point and try to reason with him just a little bit before he drops from the point and vanishes into smoke again. He then reappears somewhere else in the room, calling in additional forces. We do this again and again until we can throw Jason to the ground. Batman has the opportunity to knock him out, and probably has every time they've been next to each other. But instead of knocking him out, he doesn't. Jason is very much not alright, but he is alive and no longer hunting us. Joker talks about how he had a hand in driving Jason crazy, and finally we can let Gordon out of his bindings. It is now time to confront Scarecrow. We escort Gordon to the elevator and make our way to the roof. Gordon forgives us, knowing that Barbara would have helped us anyway, and acknowledges that he knows that we are Bruce Wayne. When we reach the roof, Scarecrow is waiting for us. He knows he cannot beat us physically, but he has an ace up his sleeve. Barbara is alive, and Gordon knew it. He made a deal with Scarecrow for his daughter's life. He upholds his deal and shoots the Batman. Scarecrow, though, is hardly a man of his word. Gordon played a Scarecrow. He knows exactly where the armor is strongest on the Batman, and it's something that Jason said earlier in the game. And while he does shoot us, he does so in a way knowing that we'll live. We scoop up Barbara before she can hit the ground and take cover. Scarecrow, however, thinks us cornered and sends drones to pin us in and finally kill the Batman. Lucius, though, he likes to tinker. The second Batmobile enters the frame, which we can control with the remote, and we use it to mop up the drones and return to Barbara to the safest place she can be right now, the GCPD building. Once she is there, she immediately takes over their technology department to help us remotely again as Oracle. I love Barbara, she's really just the best. To get her full support, we need to tap her back into the Batcomputer, and thus need to retake the clock tower from militia goons to give her access. A large number of the Knight's men are on patrol, but once we get through them, we can plug Oracle into the computer and return to the GCPD building. All that's left is to find Scarecrow's location. However, Scarecrow has decided to bring the battle to us. His drones and militia start to lay siege to the building. We head back through the lockup toward the Batmobile, and already have to beat waves of assailants who entered through the garage. Once we punch through their first assault, we have to pry open the garage doors enough to let the Batmobile out. To do this, we have to crawl outside the ventilation slip on the front door and see the absolutely massive number of drones throwing explosives at the GCPD walls. We power up the generators, and with that we can head back to the garage, acquire our heavy weaponry, and get ready. Barbara has done a lot of analysis on these drones and can take some of them over remotely. She gives us a countdown, and together we head out to defeat the drones. There are a full 60 of them in this siege, making it one of the longest stretches of combat we have in the Bat Tank in the entire game. Taking them out with the help of Barbara, who can hack into and take over the drones, leaving them ready to explode if we are to hit them, we emerge victorious. We're not done though, as an invasion force has also landed on the roof trying to gain access through the elevator. Barbara again uses her computer to access things like the coolant system and the electrical fences to aid us in our attack. Once the rooftop invader forces are taken care of, everything is finally quiet. For about 3 seconds. We get a notification. Gordon's voice was just used to access the Panessa studio base. We head there immediately, trying to see why this is happening, and when we enter, it is empty. Robin is gone, and a Scarecrow sign is all that remains. We exit the studios and are given a transmission from Scarecrow. He demands that we go to a certain storage facility in Kingston, where we can surrender to him in exchange for the lives of Robin and Gordon. After his transmission, Joker informs us that we could do as Scarecrow asks, or we could strike out on the town, just the two of them. This is essentially our hint that, hey, the end of the game is coming. Any side quests you want to do now, you can go do those right now. I most definitely did spend the next 8 hours of my life doing side quests, but we're in the story part. For now, we head to the safe house in Kingston. There is no one here, but Scarecrow does give us instructions via video beneath his very creepy looking figurehead. We surrender our tools and get in the storage truck. Alfred informs us that our location is being tracked, and we tell him goodbye. Our trip is interrupted by a loud crashing sound, and then all goes to black. We come to not too long after and have nowhere to go but follow the path away from the truck, which leads directly to Crime Alley. We approach the spot of the Wayne's family death and kneel to pay respects one more time. Joker interrupts us, though, taunting us until we finally attack him. He fights back, and then more of him, and then more of him. Our attacks grow brutal, fatal even, where we see Batman doing things that would straight up murder somebody. This continues until we get our hands on the Joker, holding him in just the right place, and Batman finally caves, and proves that, if prodded enough, he would have killed Joker. This ends the hallucination, or at least this part of it. We return to the bay of the truck, where Joker confronts us about what we just did, even metaphysically. Maybe we are more like him than we thought. We stay in the back of the semi and start the end. And here we are where the series began. Seeing this scene once again really made me feel a sense of nostalgia and also one of finality. Instead of the Joker being dragged in by Batman, we are getting dragged in on one of the stretchers. He pulls us directly into the room with Gordon and Robin, depositing us in front of a camera currently broadcasting to all the people of Gotham. Robin tries to stand to fight back and Scarecrow shoots him, making him stay down. Scarecrow's orders are simple. Gordon must remove the cowl, revealing to everyone the identity of Batman, one of Batman's greatest fears. He ensures Gordon everything will be alright, and Gordon does, showing the people of the world the man behind the mask. Even Scarecrow, who said he doesn't care, seems surprised. He moves forward with the next part of his plan, injecting a huge amount of fear toxin into Batman. He wants people to see not only their hero revealed, but defaced, uncovered, and terrified of the villain. We pan behind Batman and emerge somewhere else. Now deep in the psyche of the Joker, we see him strapped to a very similar gurney that the Dark Knight was just in, except he is now surrounded by other important supervillains: Croc, Two-Face, Riddler, Penguin, just to name a few. They converse as to what to do with the man now that they have him, but Joker plays it cool as a Joker-fied Batmobile comes crashing through the wall, instantly killing Killer Croc. Joker then hops in and goes on an absolute spree of killing until the button prompt to release the killing joke comes up on the screen. Doing this finishes off all the remaining soldiers and lets the Joker exit the vehicle with a huge gun in his hands. He proceeds through the area, executing supervillain by supervillain. Penguin tries to bribe the Joker, but the Joker doesn't care about money and kills the Penguin. The Riddler tries to hold a hostage, but the Joker doesn't much care about innocent bystanders either and shoots through both of them. Next, we come upon Harvey, who tries to appeal to Joker, but again, the Joker doesn't much care about this either. He kills Two-Face, bids farewell to Gordon, and exits to see Gotham on fire. This is Joker's ideal world. Alfred comes in through the earpiece begging us to stop, but we aren't Batman anymore. We are in the Joker. We cut again to the Joker as he laughs on the table, uncaring of the fear Scarecrow is trying to induce. Scarecrow doesn't like this. He doesn't understand the internal struggle going on between the two psyches, and injects more toxin, letting us go deeper into the mind of the Joker. We reappear at the burning Gotham scene and get to dive into Joker's greatest fear, all while Batman's mind is trying to fight back. Batman turns off the lights, trying to intimidate the Joker, but he activates a flashlight. We're somewhere else. The painting from the beginning and end of Arkham City, with Batman carrying the dead Joker out of the complex in front of us. We progress further and further in this dream world until eventually we come upon the Joker's wake, which only had one attendant, Harley Quinn. Joker is upset and tries to shrug it off, but it's slowly getting to him. His largest fear is becoming apparent. It's not Batman, but something else. Steadily, we reach a room where we can listen to news anchors talking during the anniversary of Joker's death, and then we really understand. They talk of forgetting who the Joker even was, and that he wasn't even relevant anyway. Joker's biggest fear is being forgotten. Then the Batman statues start to appear, giving us quite the startle, but we have a big gun and we can shoot them down. Before long, we reach a large open courtyard with no way out. The music mounts, and the statues start appearing. And I am absolutely terrified of Batman at this point. Batman could be anywhere. We can't slow down his approach. Eventually, the Batman appears, knocking us to the ground, leaving us next to a wall that we can shoot through. This leads us to a long hallway we can finally use to escape the Batman. We pull a lever, turning on the lights to reveal a cavernous room with swinging prison cells. One in particular is then drawn out from the depths, labeled Arkham Asylum Intensive Treatment. Joker recoils. There's only one person in the world that this could be. Batman appears and walks towards us slowly. Bullets cannot deter him, we cannot run, he will catch us. He picks up Joker by the throat, and then...
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
I cannot stress how important this scene is for the story, and it hits harder coming from Kevin than anyone else. Terror turning to triumph, we beat the crap out of Joker until we can throw him in the cell. With that, we beat the fear of becoming the Joker, locking it away as Bruce has done with the rest of the fears in his life. We suppress the Joker's psyche to where it will never return. Joker does need us. Without us, he will eventually be forgotten. Having conquered our fears, Batman's green eyes clear, proving that he has finally won. Scarecrow continues on, trying to say that Gotham has no savior, no hope, and that the Batman has lost. Batman proves he is better by simply stating,
I'm not afraid, Crane.
Scarecrow then moves to kill the Batman, but not before an old pal pays us back for sparing him earlier. Jason releases us, and we turn the fear back on its creator. Crane, now full of terror, must feel the wrath of his own medicine. He doesn't have to wait long as Gordon knocks him out. We help Robin up, ask Gordon to look after everyone, and as Batman puts it, he was there for the birth of Batman. He should be there to see how it ends. We take Crane via Batwing to the roof of the GCPD, where Cash says he doesn't much care that we're Bruce and will stick to calling us Batman. And that's all for now. Don't worry, I know there's more, a lot more actually, but in order to do that, you have to activate the Nightfall Protocol, and that involves us to do a certain number of most wanted missions. So for now, let's address the story we've had so far. Let's start with the titular character, the Arkham Knight. I love the inclusion of Red Hood for many reasons. With Robin and Nightwing included in Arkham City, and Oracle's help going all the way back to Arkham Asylum, we have seen and had help from members of the Bat family, but didn't have the full context of their history. Jason Todd fills in the gap that is between Dick Grayson and Tim Drake. I was hoping that we'd have other mentions of him in the other games, so that way this one would have more impact, but it still does add a lot to have him here. Jason's story is brutal, and I know that even if a small mention of him would have been included in previous games, perhaps Alfred mentioning it to Batman or Joker referencing his murder, it would have felt more earned. Of course, this is just me speaking. It definitely could have been a side thing in the other games and I just missed it. If I did, please let me know so I can go find it. As such, I feel as if the Arkham Knight as Jason Todd reveal is a little easy to guess. I went into this mostly blind, but still, once I started seeing flashbacks to Jason in the movie studio, I connected the dots. I feel like that's intentional though, and it's set up so even fans of the games, but that people who don't have knowledge of previous Batman media would be able to put together at least a rough guess of the identity. It's the same rule for all whodunits. Leave enough clues that the audience can try to figure it out. I do like Jason's final appearance in the base game being him helping Batman and then disappearing to do his own thing, as it leaves it open for him to figure out his own story after the Batman. I think the Arkham Knight's presentation in this game before the reveal is really well done, but it also is pretty incompetent, I guess. Between ambushing Batman in the side room of the tunnel to literally having him in his sights at Ace Chemicals twice, and then the ambush in the missile launcher room, I feel like Jason could and should have killed Bruce. I don't buy a former Robin thinking some random goons would be able to take down the Bat, which maybe it was intentional. Maybe he was trying to lead him to Crane in some capacity. Or maybe there was still a part of Jason that didn't really want to kill Bruce. Another slightly weird thing is the relationship between Todd and Crane. One of Scarecrow's essential plot points once the Cloudburst is destroyed is that he will break and reveal the Batman. Jason Todd knows who the Batman is. Maybe that wasn't plan A, maybe it was plan B or C, but even then, Todd must have been aware of this and he said nothing. If he wants to kill Batman, wouldn't revealing his identity help in the endeavor by giving Crane even more of an advantage? Also, why does Crane really trust the Knight? Was he on loan from the Joker at some point? I know it's pretty nitpicky, but overall, Jason did well for the time that the game gave him. Let's talk about Batman pushing away his family. Now I know Arkham Origins is one of the black sheep of the franchise, but one of the prime focuses of that narrative is Batman learning to rely on other people for help. Batman in this game seems to have forgotten about this important lesson he learned really early in his life. I can understand not telling Gordon about Barbara before she's kidnapped. It's the nature of the Bat family to be secretive to protect those they love. But what I can't abide is blatantly lying and withholding information from Robin. Tim did nothing to deserve not knowing that Barbara died. Also, throughout the entire game, he is having these basic manic episodes and insists that he tells people he is fine. He tells no one he is still suffering from the Joker's sickness, and generally I found this behavior a little less like a caring patriarch of the family and more like a selfish child. I know Batman had his reasons, and the trauma of his past makes it hard for him to trust, but I feel like so much more trouble could have been avoided with just communicating. If not with the entire Bat family, at least with Alfred. On the subject of the Bat family, let's dive into Barbara. She is by far one of my favorite characters in the series. Her death, or well, faked death, has interesting clues that I 100% missed the first time. For starters, her death never happens. Obvious, I know, but hear me out, it's really cool. Scarecrow never gives definitive accusations for what we see in the room with the fear toxin. He can't know. We are infected by the toxin. All he knows is that we are seeing something that is ruining us, not what it is. There's also a genuine possibility that what we're hearing from Scarecrow is part of the fear toxin. In addition, while the Joker is inside the box, he physically moves the pistol. There is no way he'd be able to do that as a figment, unable to move things on his own. It's such a subtle thing, but I totally missed it the first time, and it really adds to the depth of the narrative. Again, we've talked about it before, the best part of mystery movies and novels is to leave the breadcrumbs there so the viewer can figure it out. All the clues were there, I completely missed them. And then we come to Joker. At the end of Arkham City, we very much let the Joker die. Knowing I still had 2 games left to play in the series, I was excited to explore more of the Rogues Gallery. In Arkham Origins, I was a little let down by this, as Black Mask was in fact replaced by Joker. In the opening sequence of Arkham Knight, we burn the Joker's body, thrashing the slight suspicion I had that the Joker would somehow finagle his way back into the limelight. I won't lie, when he first shows up in Ace Chemicals, after the jump scare, my emotions went from confused to a little angry. I didn't want this to turn into just another Joker story. As the game progressed though, we see it's more of a cerebral story, and I forgave it quite a lot. I also reconciled it with myself that saying, this entire series really is the saga of Batman and Joker, and now instead of an outward struggle, we deal with the ideologies and motivations of the two of them. I also like that we get more Joker context instead of just dealing with things Joker has done. We see more of the history between the Bat and the Clown. 2 instances specifically that really enriched the story for me are flashbacks to Jason Todd and the flashbacks to Joker confronting Barbara. While Joker isn't a direct antagonist for much of the story, seeing more of the mythos of the Arkham series fleshed out was really fun. That being said, I did have some problems with the Joker. I have a hard time wrapping my head around him basically doing a hostile takeover of Batman's brain from a logic standpoint. Blood sicknesses don't do that, so it made me question more than once if this really was a figment, is this really the Joker, or is this just Bruce going crazy? Don't be wrong, it didn't stop me from enjoying Mark Hamill's performance. Nor did I dislike it after my initial revulsion, but it did break from the game enough to just be a little minor annoyance. It took a while for me to come around and enjoy the idea of Joker being back, but because he takes a little bit of a backseat as the driving story element, I really enjoyed it. I like the idea of basically a Batman and Joker buddy cop. Another character I think deserves especially special mention is Ivy. She has been a mainstay in this series going all the way back to Arkham Asylum, but she was very one note prior to this game. I enjoy that her character got some real depth beyond simply I am the hot girl that likes plants. I found myself really missing her when she was gone and really liked her almost humorous interactions with Batman in the beginning. Ivy has to give up that which she loves to save the city of Gotham, something she has traditionally wanted to take over or destroy, showing that a lot has changed in her internally. While she is used as sort of a MacGuffin in the story, being immune to the poison and central to defeating Scarecrow, she is a MacGuffin who they took time to make us care about. Arkham Knight has one of the stronger central narratives in the Arkham franchise. Arkham City suffered from feeling like a series of fetch quests with a lot of connection problems. Arkham Asylum, while not narratively strong, was the first foray into the franchise and had some growing pains. Arkham Origins was a really strong story. Before we can put a cap on the story, we need to talk about Most Wanted missions, because in order to unlock the Nightfall Protocol ending, we have to do those. The Perfect Crime was not what I was expecting this quest to be at all. This quest can start one of 2 ways. While visiting the GCPD for the first time, Cash can suggest that we check out victims of a serial murderer. If that isn't enough, you can also hear the operatic music that happens when we're nearby these poor victims. It's very eerie flying through the city and having the soundtrack be drowned out by opera singing. It really creates that feeling of unease when you get near. There are multiple victims, but the process for each is the same. Once you find the person, you activate detective mode and have to scan through various layers of their body, skin, muscle, and bone for abnormalities. This identifies the victim and gives us information about where they came from and pre-existing conditions they may have had. This lets Alfred start working through connections. At first, there isn't much linking them together other than their being from other places than being moved to Gotham. We find that they were taken near parks and other large public areas. As we move throughout the city, we will continue to find different victims that are linked by certain traveling circuses recently moving through their town. This in turn leads us to a man named Laszlo, who worked on said circus and has a beauty shop here in Gotham. Going to that shop, we hear the same operatic music from the crime scenes, indicating we are probably in the right place. Here's where things got so much stranger than I expected they were going to be. As we go behind the beauty salon, we hear the large figure in the middle singing along with the opera. He has a victim on a gurney in what looks almost like an operating stage. Entering this arena, we confront the man, and I have never heard of this villain before in my life, and I both love and hate him. He is disconcerting in all the right ways, singing his accusations while also sort of speaking truths. He explains that the ones who were left out for dead are the ones he couldn't fix, and the ones he could fix, he sicks on us. The Dolatrons, as he calls them, are normal people who have been operated on to not feel fear or pain. They walk toward us like faceless zombies in one of the most terrifying animations this game gives us. They cannot be knocked out by hitting them normally. We have to knock them on the ground, leave them momentarily dazed. The only way we can ensure they don't get up is by doing a ground pound on them while they are vulnerable. That's a big ask when there are a bunch of them running at us and we have this guy in the middle throwing cleavers at us. Slowly wading our way through the dolls and countering cleavers by throwing them back at this pig guy, we can suplex the psychopath onto the gurney and drag him to the Batmobile. He protests our accusations of him committing crimes, but otherwise we take him back to the GCPD, throw him into the high security cell, and now whenever we visit, we get to listen to some dope opera vocals. I liked this quest. It did not go the direction I was expecting when it started at all. Going in blind, I thought we were tracking, well, a normal serial killer. Going from CSI to brainwashed soldiers following a guy in a pig mask was such a crazy tonal shift that this quest is a standout for me. It's also another way to use detective mode in creative ways, which is always a plus. Even though it was a pretty guided scanning of all the parts of the body, it was a good implementation of the system. The Dolatrons were genuinely creepy, and fighting them was a fun take on a what-if Batman but also zombies. Very fun quest. From here on out, every time we complete a quest, the main instigator will be thrown into the GCPD lockup, so keep an eye on that. It gets really crowded in there. While exploring the world, it will be fairly obvious to see that some of the buildings in Gotham are very much on fire. Coming upon the building, we can use the Batmobile's power winch to jumpstart the fire suppression system in the building to put out the blaze. Doing so disturbs its occupants. Firefly bursts from the building and begins to fly through the streets, launching fire in his wake. In order to stop his rampage, we have to tail him in the car until his jetpack is running low on fuel. This lets us steadily close the gap and launch ourselves from the Batmobile and drag him to the ground. We do some damage to him before he gets loose and escapes for now. In order to get another chance at chasing him, we have to find more burning buildings, activate their fire suppression units, then chase the man with the jetpack. Once you do this 3 times, you hijack his jetpack and personally fly him to the GCPD for arrest. It's nice giving him a taste of his own medicine before throwing him in the high security lockup. This is a fun quest overall. Chasing Firefly in the Batmobile is almost more fun than the boss fight was in Arkham Origins, and this is one of those quests that is time locked, in that you cannot do all the steps at the start of the game. Super short, but worth doing, and it's a good return for Firefly. In the line of duty is the quest that's connected to Gotham on Fire. The firefighters have gone missing. All members of one of the brigades, including the chief, are gone. Finding their location has us listening in for if we can hear them or the goons that have kidnapped them. In order to rescue each member, we have to defeat all of the nearby henchmen, sometimes using our fists, sometimes quieter. Each time we rescue one, we'll occasionally get some information and questions about the chief and the other members. As they have been showing us, there has been an uptick in fires in the past weeks, and they have a great respect for their chief, who advocated for them when a lot of the layoffs were happening in the other fire brigades. This is another time-locked quest, meaning more firefighters will become available through story progression. Only once every other member of the crew has been saved can we go after the chief. The chief is incredibly well protected with 11 armed guards. Once we save him, Batman confronts him about the increase of fires, and Batman correctly guesses that the chief was a part of it. The chief worked with Firefly to start fires, giving his crew enough work where there wouldn't have to be layoffs. Even though he ensured no one was hurt and the buildings were all abandoned, it's still wrong. It's a scenario where we can sympathize with the man, but it's a bad situation that he dealt with in a very bad way. He doesn't resist and comes with us to the Batmobile, telling us that his daughter would be so proud of her dad riding in it. He gets in the high security prison and says that he will be the one to tell his own men of his choices. That's something, at least. With all the firefighters accounted for, quest complete. This is a fun string. It doesn't really tell you where to look, but it's relatively easy to complete once you start. The variety of combat and stealth encounters make sure it doesn't turn into simply repeating the same action section over and over again, and it's well worth doing. The militia campaign has a lot of subsections to it. They have a huge portion of the side content of this game, as they are the main group we are fighting against throughout the story. The first of these 4 quests we have to do is the mines. The first mine we find is part of the story. We have to
dismantle mines, yes, or die.
Sorry, I don't know what came over me. Weird. Activating the power winch lets us inject viruses into the mine, drawing the wrath of militia drones. Defeating them lets us rev the Batmobile up to destroy the mine. We rinse and repeat this for all of the mines in the game, some of which are time-locked behind story progression. Spoiler alert, I guess, for the main story. The Arkham Knight is no longer the leader of the militia after he saves Batman, so the contingency leader has taken control to finish the militia campaign. Funnily enough, he is an old friend of ours, Deathstroke. He took the large sum of money to be the backup commander, and as an added bonus, he gets to have a rematch against Batman for the time we absolutely crushed him in Arkham Origins. But he was supposed to be joining the Suicide Squad based on the Origins ending. Don't know what happened there, but I guess we'll roll with it. In addition to mines, we also have a myriad of roadblocks to deal with. These are spread throughout all 3 islands and are large metal walls with enemies fortified within. In order to break the roadblock, you need to defeat the enemies within, find the commander, and break his communicator. These have a lot of variety involved. Some are as easy as hopping the wall and beating up the residents. Others require us to sneak inside, activate a button, and then use the Batmobile to break through heavily armored turrets and enemies with huge firepower. It's another relatively straightforward part to the militia quest, and it isn't difficult. A few notable roadblocks require jumping over the river to land inside, and sneaking through a heavily occupied area to unleash the tank upon unsuspecting enemies. Very similar to roadblocks are the watchtowers. These watchtowers are usually high up on buildings with guards posted, turrets scanning the sky, and red searchlights. Much like roadblocks, in order to destroy the watchtowers, you need to defeat the enemies and use explosive gel to destroy the center console. This in turn will destroy the turrets and the searchlights. There isn't a ton of variety with these. The searchlights do make them easy to find, and generally they are straightforward stealth or combat encounters. Another thing to do in order to beat back the militia is to capture their lieutenants. These leaders are driving armed vehicles and patrol routes across all 3 islands. In order to capture them, you need to tail them in the Batmobile and do enough damage to disable the vehicle by either using the chase rockets or ramming them into the scenery. The lieutenants can then be captured by police, where they will show up in the GCPD lockup. There's relatively no variety with these encounters. They all play out as standard chase sequences. The only other thing to manage with the militia is their flying drones. Destroying these is the most straightforward of all. Gliding and getting above them will let you stand on top of them and use the explosive gel. Now that all of that is taken care of, we can finally confront Deadshot. He issues a challenge, and I was expecting something like the boss fight in Arkham Origins, one of the best fights in the franchise by the way, and what I got was a rehash of the Cloudburst boss fight. That's it. Cobra tanks surround a large tank, destroy the Cobra tanks, fight the large tank the exact same way we fought the Arkham Knight, and you win. But when the cutscene plays and Deathstroke jumps out, oh, never mind, he's gone. Yeah, I was really hoping for more here. While the conversation we have with him while heading back to the GCPD is quite frankly hilarious, the lead up to the fight and the fight itself leave a lot to be desired. It really is unfortunate and sours the previous quest for me. Most of the pieces of this quest are repetitive, and the ending is a little disappointing for me. Regardless, once it's all said and done, we put Deathstroke in high security, and the militia is all but in shambles. I like the feeling of taking apart an army by yourself, but hate the execution of the quest in this game. I feel like they could have done more, maybe showing the police taking over areas we liberate, something like that, while exploring Miyagani Island and grappling on top of a building. Oh my god, what the heck is that? Okay, calm. Yeah, this terrified me when I first had it happen. It was also late at night, and I was already on edge after the whole zombie in the diner thing, so this really threw me over. We can now tail this creature, and if we get close enough to it, tackle it to the ground and retrieve a blood sample. The blood leads us into the direction of a lab on Bleak Island. The music here is haunting, and we can see just from entering something has gone very wrong. We can watch the video, which explains the backstory of these 2 scientists. They were trying to combine DNA of different animals for health benefits. It seems the test went horribly awry, creating the monster we now see from the body of Dr. Langstrom. We use the nearby computer to fix the corrupted DNA and find a cure for his condition. We turn the helixes, creating an uncorrupted strand until we reach 100% on the monitor. Unfortunately, this is another of those time-blocked quests. We will not see the creature again for some time. Once he does show up, it will be above Bleak Island this time. Same drill as before. Tackle him to the ground, but now instead of taking a blood sample, we inject with the cure. Unfortunately, we cannot inject enough of it, and we need to do it one more time. The 3rd time we find him will be on Founders Island. We tackle him to the ground for a 3rd time, inject the cure, and then dump him in the back of the Batmobile. By the time we reach the GCPD, the cure has taken effect and Dr. Langstrom is human again. We have the unfortunate job of informing him that he has killed his wife, and he is left crying and confused. Poor guy. This is a fun quest though. Hearing the screeches as you fly around make me stop and pause, making sure I tracked him down. It's short and sweet, but a fun enemy with something new that we didn't have in the previous games. Way back in Arkham City, there was a man who watched us from the sidelines. Confronting him lets us finally have a meeting with him where he talked of a prophecy that Batman would eventually need to be replaced, as the fire that consumed Gotham would be too much for him to handle by himself. The man then left without explaining. Azrael has returned in this game, leaving a flaming bat symbol on a rooftop somewhere in Gotham for us to find. Doing so, Azrael expresses that he wishes to be the person who replaces the Batman. Given that we know we can't be the Bat forever, Bruce agrees to at least give him a test to see if he's truly worthy of the cowl. For this quest, we actually take the perspective of Azrael as he completes the Augmented Reality Challenge. There is an added bonus of needing to do so without taking a single hit of damage, which is not too hard as Azrael clears it with ease as he plays very similarly to Batman. Batman praises his power and Azrael says he will leave another sign when he is ready to be tested again. In other words, go do more story before we can do another challenge. Once we do, he sets up another flaming bat symbol and performs another trial, much harder than the previous one. This continues until we have a final challenge on top of the statue in the middle of Gotham Bay. After this one, Batman commends Azrael but says he must consider. See, after each combat, it turns out Alfred was running analysis on Azrael, his body, his style, but also his brain. In order to look at it, we need to go back to the clock tower. It seems there's something inside of Azrael's head that should not be there, some piece of technology that warrants investigation. We do so and find that it's some sort of memory chip. We can access the data held within and find it is the memories of a normal person, but there's something very wrong. There are symbols in the same language we saw back in Arkham City. Scrubbing through the footage, if we scan the symbols, we unlock the true message. And it doesn't bode well for us as they tell Azrael to kill the Batman. Batman says he will go after him, but we don't have to go far as he has found a way into the clock tower. Batman gives him a chance to ignore the orders of his order or follow them, whatever he chooses. The quest again then puts us in the shoes of Azrael. Azrael has been essentially brainwashed by the Order of Saint Dumas, but he has enough strength that he could go against their idea or agree with them that Batman has to die. We pick up the sword Batman took from us because we aren't allowed to kill and have two choices. The quest actually honors the fact that there are two choices. Option 1, kill the Batman, or at least Azrael tries to swing the sword, but Batman stops him. Disappointed that Azrael did not follow with Batman's ideals, Batman takes him to the high security portion of the GCPD. Option 2, we adhere to Batman's ideals and put the sword down. Overall, this was a fun quest, and it was a good build-up from the previous game. We knew, or at least expected him to show up at some point, and I think they did a good job paying off that build-up, at least a little bit better than one of the other quests we'll see. The Gunrunner quest starts when Nightwing takes us on our first trip to see Penguin. After this first foray into blowing up Penguin's money, he will occasionally find more vans that we can tag with a seeker dart and then follow through the city. These chases are quite funny as they get great lines, and honestly, the people inside expect to be able to lose the Batman, which is hilarious. After each chase sequence, we have a small base to infiltrate. After infiltrating, we duo fight the goons with the help of Nightwing, blow up the bank vault, all to cripple Penguin's operations. This is the same formula for all of them, except for the second to last and the last one. In the second to last one, we tag the car, go to the warehouse, and beat up all the goons before Nightwing even gets there. I remember waiting for Nightwing to come around so I could play as him for a bit, but he never showed. I figured it was a fluke, so I progressed with blowing up the vault, and then we get contacted by Dick. As soon as he said that we have the Penguin right where we want him, I knew he had been captured and we would have to go get him. As expected, we can now track Penguin to his base of operations. Infiltrating this one, we can see that Nightwing has indeed bitten off way more than he can chew. We sneak in, crash the party, taking out all the nearby goons. This leaves us with an opportunity with just us and Penguin, who is holding Nightwing at gunpoint. Dick subtly explains to us what he's going to do, and then we smash Penguin into the ground, blowing up his final cache and dragging the big man into the GCPD lockup. In all, this is a rather fun quest that's tied to the main story, which I enjoyed quite a bit. The duo fight system is something that we've only touched on a little bit in this game, but it really is a super fun feature to get added. Getting to play with other members of the Bat family is something I didn't know I was missing, but man is it a blast with Nightwing and Batman on screen. At the end of this quest, we also get a conversation with Dick Grayson, hinting at parts of the Nightfall ending we will talk about in just a second. Batman tells us that he is proud of Nightwing, and explains that this is the last time that they will probably meet each other. Dick jokes, but understands and says he won't let Bruce down. Super fun quest, well worth doing. Gotham is a city with a lot of banks. In the chaos that Scarecrow's plot to end the world has, The banks have been easy pickings, especially for an organized gang with Harvey Dent at their lead. The first bank alarm we will hear is in Chinatown, and you'll likely hear it when you're just exploring the city. They're pretty loud. These missions are a fantastic variation on Predator encounters. On the top of your HUD, you will see that there is a counter that will track how much money the gang has acquired. We have to stop them before they reach the threshold and leave with the cash. The catch is, while the vault alarm is going off, the goons can't really hear us very well, so we can take down their friends and be as loud as we want. This means fear takedowns, gadgets, and knockout smashes aplenty, as we can speed through as many goons as possible. It's great sighting in their path with detective mode and then taking out a large group of 3 in the blink of an eye, only to dive around a corner while their friends are clueless. After the section where we can be as loud as we want, though, Harvey closes us in with the remainder of his men. He tells them that whoever kills us will get double pay. These now progress as normal stealth levels as the vault alarm is off. In order to escape the trap, we must take out the rest of his men. Once we do so, the bank robbery is thwarted for now. For the sake of brevity, as looking at the runtime of this video, it's already going to be absurd, there are 2 more banks that we need to do in this system. In the third bank, once we disrupt the robbery, Harvey Dent himself joins to ensure our death. Unfortunately for him, he is just like any other goon, and once we sneak up behind him, there's nowhere for him to go. We pack poor Dent into the back of the car and throw him in a high security cell with the rest of them. This is a super fun take on stealth mechanics. Being able to do takedowns but also not have to worry about being heard is new for the series. It gives the cool settings of the bank just enough of a twist to be very different from other Predator encounters. Very well done quest, brief in overall length, but it was super enjoyable to do. For all the quests in this game that innovated or did cool things with the system, this one did not. This is by far one of my least favorite quests in all 4 games, which is sad because the Friend in Need quest is one of the most anticipated quests I had for this game. Remember way back in Arkham City when we were tasked to find a serial killer who was removing people's faces? Well, we found that person and he had grafted his face to look exactly like Bruce Wayne. Remember when I said I was really looking forward to how this quest ended? Yeah, this is this quest, and it's disappointing. We start with the generic summons to Wayne Tower, and then take the perspective of Bruce Wayne. Odd, but I guess we need something from the tower, and it'd be weird to show up in the front door as Batman. We wave hi to the receptionist, and then head into the office. At the computer, we do a retina scan, and odd, it doesn't seem to be recognizing us. Lucius Fox comes in to troubleshoot, and then we inexplicably beat his head into the computer so it opens. Left wondering what the heck is happening, we then cut to Batman watching these activities unfold on a CCTV and realize that this is not actually us, and is in fact our good friend Hush. Great bit of cinematography though, I'll give it that. It had me wondering for just a second. Batman emerges from the elevator to the receptionist claiming that Bruce Wayne has a gun and has gone crazy. We enter the room and our friend Hush, or Dr. Thomas Elliot, has Fox at gunpoint. Hush demands that we go and find Bruce Wayne and bring him to the office so that he can have his revenge. Batman makes the decision that instead of doing all of that, he will simply take off his mask. Hush is taken aback by this, and it would be quite interesting to see your childhood friend turned into a masked vigilante. They talk for a while about how Thomas wanted the inheritance for his family, who was still alive by the way, and Bruce connects the dots that Thomas killed his family to get the money. We let Hush ruminate on this a little while Batman narrates to us that we need to press counter at a specific time. We wait for the right moment, and then boom, we throw Hush into the desk as he screams for the well-being of his perfectly crafted face. They decide to hold him at the tower as Hush now knows who the Batman is. And that's it. Quest over. Okay, what the fuck? I had such high hopes for this, and it was over in like 3 minutes. With all exposition, no interesting gameplay, I had to press like 2 buttons, and even the story was like being narrated to us. There was nothing to figure out. I have no emotional attachment to Hush's parents. I know from the comics, because I went out and bought the Hush comic, that he and Batman have a long history and that Hush is a nuanced character. Here, he just isn't. This quest angered me enough that I went to go read a book to make sure that it wasn't this way in the comics. As far as quests go, this is the lowest point of the game for me. The cinematic framing of us thinking we just punched Fox in the face was cool, but it's immediately followed by some of the worst ideas this game has. I'm frustrated, we're moving on. Lamb to the Slaughter is another one-off quest. We learn very close to the end of the story that Jack Ryder has been wandering around the statue in the middle of Gotham Bay. We stop by to check on him and he's doing fine. He's just going to be sacrificed to a cult, nothing major. We then get attacked by those cultists and have to beat them senseless. This is a very typical combat encounter, other than the arbitrary time limit. By the time you get this quest, you are so strong that the time limit doesn't really matter. So after beating up all the cultists, you have to use the remote electrical charge to turn off the electricity so you can dive into the box and knock the knife out of the leader's hand. This saves Jack and ends the quest. No, really, that's it. It's not bad per se, it's just not good. It feels like they wanted a certain number of wanted missions, and this is just one of the ones that were easy to get done. It's a lot like the Hush quest. You show up, you only have to do one thing, and then you're out. Do it because it's easy, I guess. There is, however, one most wanted mission that is more involved, longer, and more complicated than all of the rest, perhaps even all of them put together. In order to finally catch the man who has been tormenting us for 4 games, we have to go after the Riddler. The Riddler quest start is tied to the main story, so that's unavoidable. But only the first step of the quest is required to continue the story. Once we leave Selina in the orphanage the first time, we can do Riddler's first trial. We take the Batmobile to the quest marker and take it down a large elevator while the Riddler asserts his intellectual dominance over us. We come out along the bottom to find a Riddler racetrack. Honestly, the amount of things they thought up for the Batmobile to do is quite staggering. There is one problem with that though. I am terrible at racing games. That means that these are utterly terrifying to me. While we run the race in the background, let's talk about how the Riddler race mechanics actually work. Each race is 3 laps, with each lap getting a little harder or adding to the track. At each race, there will be large blocks that can be moved by pressing the cape stun button. Pressing them at the wrong time will throw an obstacle in front of you or just crush you. Usually, the floor panels will tell you which zones are safe for changing the stage. After this first lap, Riddler will start to get mad and throw either harder timing windows or more obstacles at us. Each lap is also timed. Failure to finish the lap within the allotted time will mean we have to restart the race. After finishing the first Riddler puzzle, on our way up, Riddler says he has prepared another challenge for us in Chinatown, one that will be particularly more brow-furrowing. Sounds to me like we have a puzzle on our hands. Heading over to Chinatown, we have another Batmobile elevator which leads us down into whatever Riddler has for us. And yes, as we suspected, it is a Batmobile puzzle. This puzzle, called Balancing Act, requires us to get in and out of the Batmobile to raise and lower a series of platforms to jump the Batmobile over a gap we cannot cross normally. Puzzles like this that require us to manage both Batman and the Batmobile's placement are a fun addition. Like with the races, I'm glad the Batmobile is just being utilized in different ways beyond just being a cool car. This first puzzle is quick, and we steadily move the Batmobile from one side of the room to the other, using the winch to power the wall pattern. This next part is formulaic, meaning every time we finish one of these outside puzzles, we will have to do this, so let's just go over it once. Once you complete a Riddler race or Batmobile puzzle, Riddler congratulates you on your victory before requiring you to stand on a pressure plate to reveal a pattern of lights on the wall. Inside the orphanage, Catwoman sees a series of boxes that have sprung up from the floor. We have to make sure that Catwoman opens the box that corresponds to the green light we see on the wall pattern. This will, in turn, give Catwoman a key she can use to reduce the number on her collar. Once Catwoman picks the correct box this time, Riddler pushes her to explain what just happened inside the orphanage. She is less than thrilled, but eventually relays that there is...
Why, Batman, there's a big mysterious green door.
Well, let's head back to the orphanage and see what's behind the door called Numeracy 101. Back at the orphanage, before we can head into the main room, there is a short riddle we have to complete. Then we can head back into the room to see what Riddler has come up with. Numeracy 101 turns out to mean that each character must stand on a plate at opposite sides of the room to relay to each other what order they need to hit the glowing Riddler targets in. A simple enough puzzle, but fun. After completing the numbers part, Riddler sicks some more Riddler bots on us. Once the robots are scrapped on the floor, we get another key for Selina, reducing the count yet again. Unfortunately, the other side rooms are locked until we progress. Our next Batmobile section is near Elliott Memorial Hospital. This Riddler race is aptly called the Crushinator. Here the gimmick is we have a lot of Riddler blockades that come down from the ceiling. We have to drive from safe zone to safe zone, dropping and raising the blockades until we pass through the race. I will not lie, this one gave me a significant amount of difficulty at first, as I am bad at racing games to begin with, and having to manage the floor I'm driving on is a whole other animal. Finishing this lets us reduce the number on Selina's collar yet again. This unlocks the 5th Riddler puzzle, called Flight School. This one is one of my favorites. This puzzle requires pushing pressure plates very far away. The only way to reach them is to use the Batmobile's enhanced boost function. This lets Batman shoot from the car to gain a lot of height and momentum. Each time we hit one, we unlock a door, letting us get farther along the course. Each door requires us to get a little bit more finesse, like making turns or ensuring that you have enough height to make it through a tunnel covered in blades. It's a unique way to use the boost and the Batmobile in a puzzle. Now that we've completed our Falling with Style course, we get the oh-so-familiar wall puzzle. Once we have finished this one, however, we get access to another one of the side rooms, this one called Intro to Physics. This duo puzzle requires us to stand on pressure plates to raise and lower pipes. Batman, being a little thicker than Catwoman, can raise the pipes just a little bit higher, and if both of them stand on the plate, it raises it to its maximum possible distance. We need to escort the electrical charge from one side of the room to the other by moving between the characters and moving the characters from plate to plate. It's a really fun puzzle, and once we get the charge to the end of the area, the arena behind us becomes electrified. One character will have to stand on a pressure plate to remove the electricity and allow the other to cross. However, doing this spawns in some Riddler bots that now have an extra twist. Each robot has a sort of attunement. Green robots can be trashed by both characters. Red robots are only damageable by Catwoman, and blue by Batman. This means that no, instead of a traditional duo fight, the duo button will instead switch characters. Hopping back and forth lets the two of us get rid of the remaining robots and collect the key at the end of the room. The next puzzle we have to do is outside the orphanage, so again we leave Selina behind and head to the next puzzle. This one is called Drain Pain, and it lives up to its name. It's a quick one, but also rather fun. There is a giant drainage hole in the floor lined with blades that will do damage to the car if they come in contact with it. What we have to do here is move between different drop points using the Batmobile wheels to spin the track and unlock pressure plates that we have to launch into. Doing this enough times unlocks the wall puzzle, giving us another key for our caller. The next puzzle in the orphanage is open, called Advanced Death Traps. Heading back to the orphanage, Catwoman and Batman go into the room, where there are two electrified floors, one for Cat and one for Bat. The goal is for both characters to reach the other side of the room, but each character can only see the safe route for the opposite character. Switching back and forth lets you walk them to the other end. At some point, the Riddler decides to annoy us with making the course rotate, but all we have to do is make sure it's facing the right way as we read it, so it's a minor inconvenience. Once both characters have activated their respective panels, Riddler bots attack and the wall in the middle is removed so we can do a proper duo fight. After that, we have unlocked our next key. This leaves us with one final racetrack to complete. We head over to the last race, named Condemned. This is a subtle combination of the previous races. There are lots of blockades, moving obstacles, crushinator pieces, and wall climbs. It's one of the more difficult ones, but once you understand how each of the individual segments work, getting through the whole race is not too bad. With that complete, we get the last wall puzzle and then have access to the final side room, aptly named the Final Exam. The puzzle works as follows. Batman needs to use the REC to pull or push floor tiles around. The goal is for the lasers coming through the ceiling to be able to strike the floor without touching the tiles. Catwoman, being on the inside, can stand on pressure plates preventing floor tiles from moving, and all others behind those tiles. Each iteration of this game comes with some obstacles Catwoman will have to dodge in the middle and a new configuration we have to do. It takes some time to do this, but with Catwoman able to stop plates from moving, it really makes this a straightforward puzzle. That's it! We get her final key and can be rid of the explosive collar. We can finally leave through the front door and be done with this Riddler. It appears the Riddler was watching some Gundam anime in Arkham and has decided to make his own mech suit. This duo boss fight sees Batman and Catwoman fighting off a string of Riddler robots unable to do real damage to the Riddler. Once all of the robots are defeated, he decides that we aren't ready to face his true power yet and disappears into the floor. He states that he will only come out to play if we solve the puzzles he has left around Gotham. We leave with Selina, who is now free to do as she pleases. She begs Batman to go with her to leave the city. Batman, being who he is, has a feeling tonight will be his last night and does not go with her. He gives her an ominous but heartfelt farewell. It's a sad scene. I think some parts of him really want to go with her, but he can't, and he knows that. Well, next on the docket is collecting all the trophies. I will spare you the about 7 hours it took me to find them all and talk about some notable changes from the previous game. For starters, there are a whopping 243 Riddlers, puzzles, and trophies that need to be collected or solved. Some of these are super simple and only require walking or grappling in certain places, others are far more complicated. There are a fair number of new puzzles. Obviously, everything involving the Batmobile are unique to this game. These include things like shooting puzzles, Batmobile power winch puzzles, or using the Batmobile to drag things out of the way for Batman to crawl through. Another new addition is Riddler bot puzzles. Some of the puzzles require us to command Riddler robots to do various tasks, such as breaking turrets, walking along electrified floors, or stepping on pressure plates. These are fun use of tools to solve two-person puzzles with only the Batman. In addition to puzzles, we have some riddles. These can be things like looking off to Wayne Manor in the distance, or going to obscure locations, or finding references to other characters in the DC universe. In all, it was one of the more enjoyable collectathons. 243 was a manageable number, and I found the variety of riddles in this game refreshing. Getting to use the large variety of tools and the Batmobile in interesting ways made sure that they didn't feel stale. That's all for the collectathon here. We've done this song and dance before. Only after everything has been found, which in turn unlocks all the audio logs, much like Arkham City, we can now return to the orphanage. We press the big button in the center, lighting up the Riddler question mark and summoning our final boss. He calls upon a bunch of his Riddler bots and we start the fight. As we are working through them though, he is steadily turning some of them red, thus making them undamageable by Batman. Eventually, there are no robots left that we can damage, leaving us with nothing to do except dodge out of the way. It is at this point Catwoman swings down, accusing Eddie of cheating and giving us the ability to finally defeat them all. Riddler doesn't take too kindly to this and attacks by summoning more of his goons, shooting large laser beams from his mech, and generally being his annoying self. The only way we can do damage to him is by doing duo takedowns, so the best method for damage is to beat up on robots, build up that bar, and then head straight for the boss. A few duo takedowns later and we can remove him from the mech, knocking him out permanently. The true villain has been defeated. We bid Catwoman a thank you, get to take Riddler into the GCPD, and with that, the true final boss and all of the most wanted missions are finally done, except for the 4 DLC ones. Arkham Knight has a lot of DLCs. 4 of them are most wanted missions that we are going to discuss here. The Wonderland DLC sees us going into the back room of the GCPD where our good friend the Mad Hatter tells us that he has 3 police hostages, and it is up to us to go and save them. He's pretty intimidating, turning himself in while having hostages. He won't be strong-armed unless we play his game, so we leave to go and find the poor police. There will be a foghorn alarm that we can use to locate them. The first police we find is at the Lady of Hope statue in the middle of Gotham Bay. They are locked in the back of the police car with a lot of explosives. In order to unlock them, we have to play a minigame the Hatter devised. I hate this game. In order to win, you have to use the left and right thumbsticks to move a line up and down on the screen. Little enemy blips will appear and we need to align those blips with where our thumbs are to destroy those blips. It's a novel idea, except for the fact that the controls are clunky and a little unresponsive to put the right angles in. Unsure how this plays on mouse and keyboard, but on controller it was a pretty abysmal experience. Once we beat the terrible arcade game, we can rescue the poor cop and move on to find the next. Another of them is by the lighthouse. We play the same game to disarm the trap and save this cop. We go to the 3rd location and the trunk is empty. Only a book is there waiting for us. Heading back to the GCPD, determined to get the location of that 3rd police officer, the Hatter seems immune to our intimidation yet again. But then something strange starts to happen. The world seems to melt. And if you've seen any of the other Arkham videos, you know the Hatter levels are never the normal ones. We seem to shrink as we are now in the pages of a book. This book tells the story of the Arkham games, and we have to fight through various representations of previous games in this storybook world. Near the end of the wave of goons, a policeman appears and attacks us. This man is our 3rd victim. He has been brainwashed by some Jervis machination to want us dead. We have to take out everyone in the room except for that one man, and this prompts Jervis to turn the page. We have to grapple, saving ourselves and the police from being crushed underneath the page. On our way, we get to see an up-close of Jervis's face in excruciating detail. Now we play through the representation of Arkham City the same way. Enemies will appear. After defeating a few, the policeman will show up. Ignore him, get rid of everyone else, then reach the next page. Finally, we arrive in the Arkham Knight game and do the same thing for a 3rd time. Once we escape the book, we find ourselves holding a policeman by the throat. Whatever strange psychedelic that had effect on us has worn off. Jarvis cowers in the corner now that we're not under his spell. Aghast that we were able to break through, we throw Jarvis against the wall and then lock him up for good. This unlocks the extra hall of the GCPD where all the DLC enemies will be housed after taking care of them. I liked this mission. It's straightforward, short, with the twist of the storybook setting at the end. We have come to expect fantastical things from the Hatter, and this one did not disappoint. My one gripe is the minigame to defuse the explosives. I feel if there was simply a hacking prompt, it would have been even more fun. A good start to the DLCs overall. The Shadow War DLC starts while we get hints of ninjas running on the rooftops of Miyagani Island. Investigating the rooftop in question shows us the corpses of members of the League of Assassins. There are no other bodies to insinuate that they are fighting a different group, so we deduce that they must be fighting each other. There is, however, a trail of blood leading away from the scene. It appears a sole survivor was able to make their way out. We attune our cowl to the blood trail and start after it. We go through the center of Miyagani Island following the trail. There's a lot of blood, so whoever suffered that scuffle is in a rough way. It also seems that after the deaths of Ra's al Ghul in Arkham City, the League has been having some infighting. The blood leads us inside Thomas Memorial Hospital, where we see another assassin talking to what appears to be 3 new recruits. We need to defeat them in order to continue. The blood then leads down the elevator, but there's not enough power in the building for the elevator to run. We use the Batmobile and the REC to jumpstart the electricity in the building and then can head downstairs. The bottom floors are in complete disarray, bodies and weapons lining the floor. In the corner, a dying rebel assassin greets us. She too passes while telling us that the demon's head should not be allowed to come back. Using a remote batarang, we can open a door and zip our way over the death water into the next room. Here we are greeted by another corpse, the assassin that we have been following all this time. The position of the body and the slaps of blood show that there is a sequence of buttons to press in order to activate a door. Using detective vision, we construct an augmented reality projection of the scene, and then press the buttons in the same order that we saw. This in turn opens the secret door and lets us slip from this room to the next. The chamber beyond is a cross between a medical facility and a throne room. Roz sits in the center and his guards draw their weapons as we approach. The nearby loyalist explains that there is a war between 2 factions of the League, those loyal to Roz and those that are trying to depose him. There has been a lot of unrest since the Arkham City incident. There is a small bit of Lazarus nearby that is being controlled by the rebels. If we were to bring it back, it would revive Roz. He pleads with us to go and help him for Talia's sake. He is dying, and he needs our help to save him. Knowing that we cannot let an innocent die, although I'm not quite sure how Roz would be an innocent, we head for the Lazarus. Following the signature takes us all the way to the edge of Bleak Island. There we traverse some tunnels until we come upon a single fountain, taking some of the liquid and then prepare to explode the rest, but are stopped by another member of the Al Ghul family, Talia's sister, Nissa. She tells us how it is her leading the resistance against her father and offers us a deal. If we stand against him, she will take the League and leave Gotham forever, never returning. She then destroys the Lazarus Fountain, and we go back to Thomas Memorial. The Loyalists, however, have sabotaged the elevator, so we need to force it down to progress. Once we reach the throne room, we have a choice that, again, this game honors. Option 1, you betray Nissa. This empowers Roz, and he kills Nissa, ending the feud. I misclicked, so we don't actually have any footage of this, I'm sorry. Option 2, and the one that I think Batman would choose, we destroy the last of the Lazarus extract, dooming Ra's al Ghul. Upon doing that, the Loyalists immediately attack. Defeating them, Nissa arrives to finish off her father. We argue against his execution, as without the Lazarus, he will die in a few days regardless. Reluctantly, she accepts and takes the League of Assassins and leaves Gotham out of respect for her sister. We take Roz to the high security lockup, and before we leave, he tells us he's proud of us. I can imagine there must be some relief in him after living for so long. We leave him behind, and the quest ends. I am a sucker for the League of Assassins storylines. It's because I was a Batman Begins kid growing up. While I don't like Talia's treatment on Arkham City that much, this follow-up story does help wrap it up in a way that I feel satisfied with. I also like that there are multiple endings, though I will say I definitely favor the one that we picked. It feels like the most Batman choice, and it lets Nissa live, who I like as a character. Great DLC, probably my second favorite of the bunch. Beneath the Surface starts when a giant airship crashes off the coast. Nightwing gets in contact with us, letting us know that the airship has crashed nearby Bleak Island and wants us to help him check it out. Worse, this is a prison ship with a very specific prisoner that we are familiar with. The interior is a complete disaster. Bent metal abounds and water has taken over basically the entire ship. As we progress, we hear people calling out for help, and we're Batman, so we go and save them. If you didn't know who this expansion was centered around before, you should have a pretty good clue now. We keep progressing through the flooded areas until we find the Warden. Pulling him out of the water, we get some answers, but not many, as Killer Croc, looking like Godzilla's baby cousin, flies from the water to abduct him and drag him deeper into the prison. We contact Dick, have him meet up with us, and beat up a bunch of escaped thugs in a duo fight. After that, we can head to the control room and talk to the guard, who explains that in order to gain access to the room beyond, we need 2 keycards. The keycards, however, are on men who bailed as the ship fell from the sky, meaning they're out in Gotham somewhere. We leave Dick behind to help people escape as we go in search of those keys. The first of the keycards is indeed on a guard, but he did not survive the landing. We take the card from his body and pursue the second parachuter. This one was more lucky, but is also currently being accosted by a bunch of goons. We rescue him, and he is happy to give us his keycard as payment. With security access in hand, we head back to the ship. Nightwing meets us in the control room, and we use the keycards to open the door. The scene inside is disturbing, to say the least. We see recordings of what happened to Croc during his imprisonment. He was experimented on for his rapid regeneration factor. This continued experimentation caused the mutations that have made him look the way he is now, forcing his body to adapt to the brutality. The scientist explains that Croc would eventually reach a point where he is too strong and may need to be put down. No wonder he decided to bring the ship down. His trait is adaptability. Why wouldn't he be searching for a way to escape? It also explains the aesthetic changes we see in him throughout the games. He steadily loses his more human figure for this more primalistic one. We continue into the next room, where we see Croc strapping the warden to the same chair he had been using for the experiments. Croc wants his revenge, and I don't blame him at all, but we can't let him murder the warden when we can bring him to a judge. We intervene, and the boss fight begins. Croc is a lot like refined Mecha Riddler. The only way we can do damage to him is through duo takedowns, and he has several different attacks that cause him to move around the stage and have different methods of evasion. In addition, during the duo takedown, he has attacks that we need to counter to continue our string of damage, much like the machine gun brutes in the main game. The additional enemies in this fight are other inmates who survived the crash. They also want to see the warden dead and punished. We rack up takedowns on the goons before unleashing duo takedowns onto Croc. Rinse and repeat enough times, and we perform a killer duo takedown that leaves Croc unconscious and the warden alive. Given the man's actions though, when we bring Croc to the GCPD, the warden gets the cell next to him. 2 criminals for the price of 1. This is a great DLC, surprisingly short, but filled with the creepy vibes we associate with Croc, and a great cap to the character that we have seen in every game since Arkham Asylum. The final wanted mission is called In From the Cold, and it belongs to the Man of Cold himself. We get a distress signal from a ship nearby. Looking at the ship, it is encased in ice and very stuck. When we investigate, we see it is crawling with militia men. There are a variety of them, and taking them out lets us access the security consoles in the bridge. This lets us gain access to the door near the break in the ship. Inside, we find none other than Victor Freeze himself. He is desperately trying to salvage his work, but Nora has been taken because he refused to help the militia take us down. Caught between delivering us to the militia and trusting us, he chooses the latter. He begs us to help by retrieving his wife while he finishes the work that he can do here in order to keep her alive. He says that if she is left out for any reason, she would not survive long. We agree and set off to find Nora. The first block through reach is not the right one, a decoy set out by the nearby militia. We politely ask the man for more information, and he gives us the true location we need. We catch up with the militia holding Nora and have to take out all the nearby armed goons to secure her pod. However, in the process of taking out all the men, the capsule is opened. Nora takes her first steps, supported by the Batman. She asks about what has happened and is justifiably a little disoriented. However, she also informs us that she has been semi-aware of everything that has been happening around her while she was in stasis. Victor calls, asking us if we have found her, and we inform him that she is awake. He pleads with us to bring her back as soon as possible, but she wants to speak with him instead of being put back on ice. As we are talking, he ensures that he will save her by freezing her again, and she knows she will die if it doesn't happen. The communication freezes as Victor sets off a large explosion in the bay, with his device sending ice and snow everywhere. Nora climbs in the back of the Batmobile, and we take her with us as we race the militia forces to his position. We crash through the snow and arrive near the ship, where dozens of drones attack. Freeze tries to fend them off, and we in the tank try our best to support, but there is just too many of them. The only way to win would be for Freeze to detonate the core, destroying his equipment, but also saving us. With no other choice, he tells Nora he loves her, and then sets off the explosion.
It's all gone. I can't save you. Maybe there's another way.
Victor, this isn't you. I won't let you destroy yourself anymore. I wish I could have told you sooner.
I don't want you to die, Nora.
Then let me live.
We won't have much time. Days.
Time never has been on our side, Victor.
We then leave them to drift off into the distance, content to love each other for the few days they will have. An honestly super emotional ending, made my favorite by the fact that we have seen Victor's entire story from start to end in this franchise. He is a character I love and feel myself sympathizing for more often than not. In all, this is a short DLC, and it serves more as a story resolution than it does a gameplay segment, but I feel it does it perfectly. As a special note, whenever you do this, it will also cause Gotham to snow. With Freeze gone, we have now reached the end of basically all the wanted missions, and have long since been able to activate the Nightfall Protocol. It's time to see this franchise end. Nightfall Protocol is the ending you unlock once you've completed enough Most Wanted missions. Of particular note, the ending does not change based on how many things you complete, but you do get more of the ending if you finish more things. The base ending happens when you finish the story. Nightfall Protocol happens when you finish the missions, and then you get another short scene after for 100%. We will be seeing the latter two right now. In order to start Nightfall Protocol, we have to go to the bat symbol.
It's done. Gotham is safe.
Thank you, Bruce. For everything.
Goodbye, Jim.
With the bat symbol gone, Gordon sends out the police and force to take the city back, now that all of the threats have been eliminated. We then go over to Wayne Manor, where Vicky Vale waits, as well as most of Gotham, I'm assuming, for Batman to come home. He does, with all the dramatic flair you would expect. Of particular note, an old friend of ours is watching right here. Hi, Calendar Man. Thought I wouldn't see you there, but I did. Batman goes up to the doors, and Alfred asks if he is sure. Batman confirms, the door closes, and Wayne Manor explodes, leading us to the title card. Gordon confirms that this is indeed the day that Batman dies. And this next part, I'll just let Gordon tell you.
Is how the Batman died. A friend once told me that criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. That the only way to beat them was to give them something to be scared of. I understand now. As his world grew darker, so did ours. When his war ended, our lives could begin again. He set us free to live, to love. There was an inquest, of course. Hundreds of suspects. Who killed Bruce Wayne? I guess we'll never know for sure. So what's next? Criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot. What happens when they have nothing to be scared of? Who will protect Gotham now that the Batman is dead?
With that, we see Tim and Barbara are being married, and Gordon is the new mayor of Gotham, and everything seems to have calmed down. As he said, once Batman ended his war, the normal lives of people could really continue. Our 100% ending shows us an obvious analog for Thomas and Martha Wayne. We follow this couple and their child as they get mugged. The muggers, however, see a silhouette of somebody, and we get the answer of who will protect the people if there is no Batman. Wow, okay. What an ending. That's a lot to unpack. So Nightfall Protocol seems to be the end of Batman, where he decides that the best course of action is to remove himself from the equation. But at the end, we also see what appears to be the Batman, but also more. He levitates off the ground and appears to grow massive wings and descend upon the criminals. Fan theories and people much smarter than myself in Batman lore have speculated that this is Bruce using fear toxin, or that it's Bruce but the criminals have residual fear toxin in them, or that it is someone else altogether utilizing the Batman persona and the toxin effects. No matter which way we cut it, there appears to be someone who still looks over Gotham. For me personally, I think that's Bruce with the toxin. I feel like faking his own death is something Batman would do. In addition, I doubt that Bruce would ever do something to harm Alfred, his longest lasting ally and friend. Keep in mind, I have not played Suicide Squad yet and do not know anything about that story. Could I be wrong? Yeah. But the thing about any form of literature, book, movie, or video game is sometimes things are left up for interpretation. In a 4-game franchise as huge as this one is, it would be hard to make an ending feel satisfying. I feel like this ending, while not perfect by any means, is a great end to a fantastic series. We see the characters we have spent so long with, Gordon and Barbara, achieve their dreams. And the city is left in a much better place after apprehending all of the outstanding members of the gallery. Joker's story has come to an end, so did the Batman's. I enjoy that while these games focus a lot on the dichotomy of Joker and Bat, the ending is firmly Batman's. That's what makes it feel so grounded and final. When I first activated Nightfall Protocol, I will not lie, I felt a huge twinge of sadness. These games were such a huge part of what I was doing for a very long time, and finally putting a wrap on the story really gave it that air of finality. Nightfall is likely one of the better endings to a franchise we have seen. As much as I want another Arkham game, I think it is the mark of a good series to know when it's time to stop, lest we turn into yearly rehashes of the same thing over and over and over again. With all the Most Wanted missions and Nightfall complete, that's it for the base story of the game. Before we talk about the story packs, I want to talk about the funny way this game does 100%. The Arkham Knight tracks 100% in such an interesting fashion that it's different than any other game I've ever played. Beating the base game, collecting all the Riddler collectibles, and doing Most Wanted mission brings us up to 100%. but doing the DLC missions brings us up to 120%. Odd. Continuing the trend of the previous two games, Arkham Knight does have a New Game Plus mode. Doing this gives us a fun little jump scare at the beginning where Joker wakes up during the cremation, and he narrates that this is the day the Joker dies. The jump scare is just for kicks, but the narration is true, I guess. As we see in the story, the last vestiges of the Joker die, with all of the other carriers of the disease being killed and Batman shoving the psyche of the Joker away from control. As with the other games in the franchise, New Game Plus significantly increases the difficulty. This difficulty setting is called Nightmare. On Nightmare mode, counter indicators are removed, enemies are faster and more aggressive, and enemies that spawn will often be higher tier than the previous playthrough. For example, special enemies like armored, cloaked, and medics will spawn at an increased rate. We retain all of our upgrades to compensate for this increase in difficulty, however. In all, I had a fun experience with New Game Plus, especially since I'd done everything once and could essentially speedrun most wanted missions in minutes now that I knew the solutions or where things were. Recompleting everything again awards us with our final completion number, 240%. This also allows us access to the golden batsuit, one of the cooler looking suits. That's really it for New Game Plus. Other than that jump scare, nothing really changes and the story isn't altered in any fashion. So let's jump into story packs, which really flesh out the Arkhamverse. There are a lot of story packs in this game. Think of story packs as bite-sized story chunks that put us in the shoes of other important characters at various points in the Arkham timeline. We will do these roughly in chronological order, but there appears to be some debate on some of the latter ones happening in relation to each other. We start with Barbara Gordon. The story pack A Matter of Family takes place sometime before Arkham Asylum, but after Arkham Origins. Barbara Gordon has not been wounded by the Joker yet, and she and Tim Drake are on an oil rig turned theme park facilitated by the Joker to rescue her father. This is honestly like a small game unto itself, with a full map to explore, collectibles, and free roam available after the main story. In theory anyway, my game always crashed when I went to free roam, but that's beside the point. The opening scene explains that we can't rely on Batman because Joker will kill Gordon if he so much as sees him. The game starts in a duo fight with Batgirl and Robin, fighting off Joker thugs near the park entrance. Joker and Harley heckle them, letting us know that both of the supervillains are in attendance. Barbara hacks the door and grapples from gondola tower to reach the theme park itself. We will notice that Batgirl has no upgrades or level ups available, but does have a suite of gadgets and a unique animation set. She has access to the Batclaw, remote hacker, line launcher, smoke bombs, batarangs, and explosive gel. On their way up the string of gondolas, Batgirl and Robin give some exposition that the park was made by an oil baron for his daughter who unfortunately passed away. Here, Barbara gets to show off her amazing tech skills by using the remote hacking device to electrify a gondola and also attract the attention of the sniper, so she and Robin can save the first hostage. Next, we see Joker, wielding a dapper hat and an RPG, explodes the tower we are using to reach the park. This separates our two protagonists, and we have to again use Barbara's technical know-how to climb through the rig. Eventually, through her extensive technical and combat skill, we emerge onto the park proper. Robin tells us he has found explosives on the rig, and we scan the park for hostages, compartmentalized into their own little encounters. We are free to do the different sections at our leisure, but here they are. The Ferris wheel is a Predator segment where we take out the armed guards only for the wheel to start speeding up and reinforcements to arrive. Defeating the second wave lets us access the panels to get the poor police out of the speeding wheel. At the Great White Shark Head, Robin will tell us he sees one of the explosives. We do a duo fight with our future husband, and then hack the explosive device within the time limit to ensure it doesn't go off. At the carousel, there are some hostages placed in a tank at the center, and it's slowly filling with water. We need to beat the goons that jump us before the tank fills and the men drown. Then we have to use our explosive gel to break through the glass and release them. Back at the park entrance, we have to defuse another explosive after beating up some goons within a time limit. And at the ship in the back of the map, there is a Predator encounter, then a hackable crane to drop something onto the deck, breaking us through and letting us progress deeper into the ship. This lets us into a strange aquarium section where we rescue another hostage. Within the same area, there is a haunted pirate ship section, with a hostage hanging above some pit that would definitely kill him. Stealthily taking out all of the men allow us to rescue this hostage. They inform us that the Joker has set up some sort of trap to kill us and Robin, which is good information to know. After the hostages are rescued, no matter what order we did them in, we get a communication from Robin that he has found our father and is sending us a location. We can now enter a side door at the park entrance that sees us platforming around the side of the rig with the line launcher before finally reaching the main event. Joker sits atop a smoking cannon with Harley leading a group of men to beat us. Gordon sits helplessly in a cage nearby. The final fight is a duo fight against another duo. Joker and Harley function as the enemy duo, helping each other and switching out as needed. A fun idea, actually. Robin and Batgirl beat down on the villainous duo until their health bars reach 0. At this point, SWAT enters the fray and Joker threatens Harley with a gun. He's using her as a distraction before finally shoots at Robin and makes his dive off the rig. He pulls a chute and he glides his way toward Gotham City. Gordon approaches the pair and thanks them. Barbara, however, is trying not to acknowledge him lest he figure out who she is. Harley then takes his attention and the pair make their escape.
I guess some things run in the family.
What a wonderful line. There is more to this pack as well. There are 4 different collectibles to get in this playground of a DLC. There are Joker Chatterteeth from Asylum, balloons like those from the Harley Quinn DLC of Arkham City, Jack-in-the-Boxes, and audio tapes. Collecting them all nets us an achievement and more exploration of this actually very well constructed small area. The audio tapes themselves talk of the oil baron selling the park at a pittance to a man named Mr. White, before the oil baron kills himself to see his daughter at the behest of his psychiatrist, Harley and Quinzel. All put together, it really does make it its own bite-sized video game, which I did not expect from such a small DLC. Really worth the playthrough. Barbara and Tim are wonderful characters, the area and the aesthetics of a theme park for a child and bought by Joker is amazing, and seeing Barbara before she was paralyzed is a treat. I only wish another game had done her this well. Next story pack. The Harley Quinn pack takes place just before the events of the main game, but after the events of Arkham City. The DLC starts with Harley crashing a van through a wall and beating up members of the Bloodhaven PD. Penguin tells her to stop wasting time and pick up Ivy. It appears that Ivy is needed to help kill Batman for Scarecrow, and that all of this is leading up to Scarecrow's plan to destroy Gotham that we saw in the main story. We get a tutorial on how to use the Jack-in-the-Box, one of her unique gadgets. It is essentially a monkey bomb from COD Zombies. It attracts enemies and then explodes. We progress through the PD and Penguin gives us a heads up that we need to be quiet. Unfortunately for him, and Quinn is telling the truth. She is incapable of doing silent takedowns, only loud ones that will cause others to come after us. She also has access to something called Mayhem Mode, where all of her attacks are one-hit kills for a limited time. Her version of Detective Mode also sees the world tinted red with scrawling writing all over the walls. She has some other gadgets. The snake streamers will stun enemies one at a time, and laughing gas is sort of a stun grenade that's like the smoke bomb we're used to but with the Joker twist. We punch, explode, and bat people around until we get to the basement, and Penguin mentions that his men have seen Nightwing outside. She baffles Penguin with her response, and once we see Ivy, who laments at having to be freed by Harley again, just like in the Asylum, we beat up on the last few police who try to stop us. Nightwing takes this opportunity to join in. Nightwing is like a mini-boss. He has more health than your average goon, but not much in the way of variety. Beating Nightwing, Ivy will restrain him with plants and we can escape with Ivy to Penguin's car. With that, we finish up the story pack. In all, it took about 10 minutes, but much like the Batgirl one, it was super well designed. The set piece of Bloodhaven is something we haven't explored before, and Harley's moveset is just exotic enough to be fun, but also still rooted in stuff that's familiar. It also contextualizes a lot of why characters are in Gotham at the time, as well as why Nightwing is tracking Penguin vehicles. Another wonderful addition. Next up, Catwoman. Catwoman's revenge takes place one day after the events of Arkham Knight. Catwoman, more than a little upset at Riddler's abduction of her the day before, has decided to lighten Riddler's coin purse as recompense. We start with Catwoman looking for the entrance to Riddler's robot factory. We need to get key cards from the goons by pickpocketing them, just as we did with Catwoman back on Arkham City. Once we have 3 keys, we take it to the control room and open the door. The goons are more than a little surprised by this, and now we have to ensure they won't go around stopping us. With Catwoman's ability to cling to ceilings, taking them out is not a huge problem, and we make our way past the security door. Of course, it's never that easy with the Riddler, and there are symbols that we have to activate in order to reach the factory. I'm gonna level with you here. I just clicked until it worked. I see that there are numbers around the side, but at the time I was playing this story pack, my critical thinking mind was completely out the window. We progress to the elevator, and Riddler takes this moment to call the computer from his incarceration. He keeps using words his computer doesn't understand, frustrating him beyond belief. We have some time to observe the robot factory as he tries to get to the computer to run the jailbreak protocol with his bots. Unfortunately, the computer is not able to understand the word run, and Riddler tries to use the phone to write code for the computer while we activate the elevator, enacting manual override. Riddler plays this off as talking to his lawyer, which leads to some of the most hilarious dialogue. He sicks his robots on us, which goes about as well as you would expect it to, then ups the ante with traps previously seen in his puzzles. Next, we continue a level lower where robots assault us again, with the added bonus of lasers shooting down from the ceiling. All of this ramps up the difficulty for the next fight with all of the aforementioned complications, as well as a floor that steadily gets more and more electrified to the point that eventually we are fighting on a very tiny square grid. And after all of that, the Riddler bots are destroyed, and Riddler is still trying to shake Officer Cash off his trail while we find the computer encrypted. Except he's currently talking, so his voice breaks the voice encryption for us. She borrows Riddler's $2.7 million and sets the factory to explode. This is a super fun adventure. It doesn't flesh out the world as much as the others, but I found myself smiling basically the entire time because of Catwoman and Riddler's banter, and the general ridiculousness of the situation was awesome. This really did feel like a comic segment that you could play through. Another wonderful addition to the story pack. Red Hood's story pack takes place after the events of Arkham Knight, but we're not quite sure when. We are told that he is stopping an arms deal between Penguin and Black Mask. Jason gets right to it, dropping in and beating up those involved. Jason comes with dual-wield massive pistols and he is not afraid to use them. Where the rest of the Bat family doesn't kill, Jason has no such restrictions. Being a former Robin, he also has access to the zip kick, a grapple gun, and a flashbang grenade. Eliminating all of the assailants, we can interrogate one of the survivors. He tells us that he is at the docks and Jason rewards him with, well, Jason definitely isn't Batman, that's for sure. At the docks, we have our first Predator section. Todd has silent takedowns, as does the other members of the Bat family, but his handguns are absolutely monstrous at distance, making him, in my opinion, vastly overpowered. Likely able to rival Arkham Origins Batman with the ability to defeat people at range. Same as before, we interrogate one of the survivors. The thug insists that we won't kill him, but, well, we head downtown to Sionis' office. I do enjoy how the loading screen says that we need to convince Black Mask to leave Gotham. Convince. I'd love to see Jason convince someone of anything at this point. Black Mask thugs guard the office and they don't take too kindly to our arrival. We convince them to stay on the floor instead of fighting, and before long, Sionis himself joins the fray with his men. He sports a pistol of his own for range damage. As with the other boss fights, defeating Roman will end the fight immediately. Black Mask seems to take Jason seriously and offers him everything and that he will leave Gotham never to return. He will go anywhere Jason tells him to. Well, Jason, ever the Silver Tongue, says,
How about you go to...
and with that, the Red Hood leaves. Okay, this DLC has no breaks the entire time. It seems that after the events of Arkham Knight, Jason is making his own way in the Bat family. He still sports a bat on his chest, but appears far less limited than the others with his methods. It's also the shortest of the bunch, taking about 5 to 10 minutes. The fact that they designed 3 areas and a fight for 10 minutes of playtime though, again, I'm super impressed with these, well worth it. The GCPD Lockdown is Nightwing's story pack. Again, this takes place sometime after the events of the base game. To start, we activate some things with remote electrical charge, letting us drop to the goons below. Nightwing sports a lot of upgrades in the gear we expect him to a Screama sticks, Batclaw, Wingdings, and much more. After defeating these goons, we inspect the nearby van for information. Thankfully, one of his goons tries to get us. Bad move, and he gladly tells us about the breakout attempt that is happening now to get Penguin out of the GCPD. On our way, Nightwing asks Fox why he never talked to Batman about the bat symbol having a self-destruct function, which honestly is a valid question. We see Penguin's goons on the roof in contact with their boss, and we take the liberty of leaving them on the ground waiting to be taken to the GCPD themselves. Our next objective is to install the remote uplink device to the roof in order for Fox to see what kind of damage has been done to the building. This means we can call Penguin and troll him around a little bit.
Hey boss, we're not getting you out of there anytime soon. Why the bloody hell no? Cause we just got our asses kicked. Hang on, who's it? Oh no, not you.
Next up, Fox lets us know that we need to restore power to the building. We also get a little tidbit that Lucius is now the CEO of Wayne Enterprises, which honestly makes sense. The Predator section here requires us to take out all of the goons who are trying to fix the power. This is somewhere we can have a how many Penguin thugs does it take to change a light bulb joke? Apparently somewhere around 13 isn't enough though. Fight is over quickly and we restore power to the building, one box at a time. We also hear that Fox has an update from Barbara and Tim. They went on an island retreat for their honeymoon. Good for them. With the power back on, helicopters drop reinforcements on the roof. Dick says he will handle it and has the lights cut again because Penguin just loves being in the dark. With Lucius running support for the GCPD environmental takedowns, we get rid of the reinforcements. Then we head over to the elevator and rescue the Penguin. I enjoy how Penguin doesn't even bat an eye, he just accepts that he is captured again. Grayson and Cash talk about how they could change the symbol on the roof to that of Nightwing, but Dick acknowledges that this is a temporary situation. He belongs to Bloodhaven now. This is, as I say with the other ones, absolutely awesome. It gives it an epilogue feel to the main story, which only gets added with the next one on the list. Seeing how Nightwing is dealing with Batman being gone, it really contextualizes that last conversation they had together. On to the last one with Robin. A flip of the coin is the final story pack and sees us in the shoes of Tim and Barbara. Barbara is acting as Robin's oracle. It appears they stopped their honeymoon a little early to infiltrate a waste disposal facility under occupation from Two-Face's thugs. Two-Face has a lot of money. Barbara disables the security and reminds Tim that he doesn't have Bruce to fall back on. It must be hard to live in the shadow of the Batman. Tim has all the tools from Arkham City and plays basically identical to that. Barbara encourages and updates us as we clear out the room of thugs. We interrogate the last man, the one operating in the control room, who informs us that Two-Face is deeper in the building. We take this information and head on in. Dent knows we are here though and chastises us for not being as good as our mentor. In the next room, we move around, picking our chance to strike. Barbara asks us how we're doing, and Robin points out that everyone says he's not the Bat, and Barb ensures that she will do better. Spraying gel on a specific wall and positioning ourselves in just the right way lets us take out the room with a fear takedown and an explosion. I mean, he looks like Batman to me. We rewire the security door and run into another group of thugs. Taking them out lets us hack the hidden wall before Barbara, and we approach the man with a high-powered rifle. Lucky for us, Tim still has his bullet shield to help approach. Taking out the guard launches us into the room with Two-Face on his throne. Once we take out everyone in the room, Two-Face finally raises from his podium and fires at us, hitting us in the foot. Two-Face reminds us again that we are not the Batman, and Barbara tells us to get ready, and we use the opportunity of the coin falling to take out Two-Face. It's a very cinematic shot for Tim. Unfortunately, with needing to take Harvey to GCPD and a bullet in the foot, the honeymoon seems to have ended permanently a little early. This wraps up this pack, and as I said in the previous, it feels like an epilogue to the main story. It shows us how the other characters are fighting back, and how they're dealing without Batman. I am happy to have these added to the main story. That's it for the packs. The amount of content these add is really staggering, and I'm super happy to have them. They fill in gaps, show us what characters are up to, and are super bite-sized, enjoyable pieces. Almost like Saturday morning cartoons for video games. Just as Arkham Knight improved and innovated in every other section of the game, let's talk about challenge maps. Challenge maps got an upgrade in a big way. Community-chosen locales, many new types of challenges, and an entire cast of characters to play with really add to the replayability these maps now have. We've talked about all of these characters individually, but let's go over all of the playable characters for each Combat and Predator map. These include Batman, Catwoman, Robin, Nightwing, Azrael, Harley Quinn, Red Hood, and Batgirl. And as for challenge types, we have Tutorial, Combat, Predator, Batmobile Race, Batmobile Combat, and Batmobile Hybrid. As an added bonus, we get upgrades for story mode when we do challenges here too. Alright, let's start with Combat. There are a myriad of combat maps, both new and returning, but they generally play the same as we expect. 4 rounds of opponents, each one slightly harder or more varied than the last. In order to receive 3 medals, we have to acquire enough points to reach the thresholds by using a variety of moves and maintaining large combo. Standard stuff, let's not spend too much time here. Predator maps are also what we expect. There are 3 special conditions we have to fulfill, such as defeating people in unique ways, using specific gadgets, or just generally remaining unseen. Tutorials likewise are what you expect. They walk you through basic mechanics and are done during the story. However, if you miss them or want to replay them, they are here for you as well. Batmobile races are an absolute blast. They are exactly what you expect, races you do with the Batmobile. These range from courses set around Gotham to DLC courses based on different movies and shows in the Batman multiverse. These are all time trials, and in order to reach 3 medals, you must reach the required time. Batmobile combat missions involve us using the tank mode to fight various groups of drones, again for points or surviving in time. The hybrid missions are a combination of race and combat, where you race from place to place, fighting drones at each spot before racing to the next location. All 3 of these are super fun additions, especially the races, because I think the DLC maps are just fantastic. I won't spend too long about challenge maps in particular, because we actually talk about them a lot in the achievement section of the video, but I wanted to address one more thing before I move on. Notably absent from this game are the campaigns. Honestly, I don't miss them. With the amount of content this game already has, campaigns would be redundant. I'm happy they did not include it in this game and focused on making quality over quantity content. Let's talk about achievements, because man does this game have a lot of them. This game has more achievements than any of the other games. Enough achievements that it takes 2 of the other games put together to reach this one at 113. Obviously, I will not be going over every achievement. Most of them are unavoidable story achievements, so let's talk about some highlights and then the achievement hunt in general. What the Butler saw is an achievement that involves doing the Wayne Manor map as Batman without using any gadgets or taking damage. This seems innocuous until you realize that Detective Vision is a gadget. You have to do this en natural. Doing this map a few times teaches you patrol patterns, and then after that it's just trial and error. I'd like this type of challenge. It's not that monstrous that it's to go and get 400 medals in a game mode. It's a test of skill, not a test of patience. In the same vein as what the Butler saw, there is Chill in the Air and the Curtain Falls. The Chill in the Air requires you to complete Crime Alley unharmed as Batman, Robin, and Nightwing. This took a lot of trial and error, as Crime Alley requires you to juggle brutes, men with guns, and medics in a very tight space. It's surprising how many times you take just a single shred of damage in these fights. My biggest downfalls were the brutes. They are aggressive, and have a very long range with their attacks. I would find myself ignoring them just a little too long and catching the end of an attack. The Curtain Falls is similar, except instead of taking damage, you have to do a perfect free flow combo in all 4 rounds of the Monarch Theater as Batman, Robin, Nightwing, and Catwoman. Instead of focusing on not getting hit, this one is space management. You have to ensure that any enemies are only 1 dodge and attack away, or else you'll lose your combo. Again, like the previous achievement, the brutes here are also a chore. I found the best way is to focus them first when they appear, with things like environmental takedowns. Again, skill-based achievements that reward experienced and practiced play. They're difficult because they make you play in certain ways, not because they make you play a lot of the same thing. Did these achievements still take time? Oh yeah, of course, but I enjoyed the process of it. Points of Impact requires us to hit 5 perfect shots in a row with the Bat Tank without getting hit yourself. This is again a fun one, not really difficult. Basically, go to the AR challenge where there are infinite takes, spin around and pop off 5 quick shots and then you're good. Why is this on the list then? I don't know, I thought it was fun. On the subject of the Batmobile, there is a string of achievements where you need to get 21 stars on any combination of maps with different Batmobiles. That means if you 3-star them, you only need to do 7 maps. And some of the DLC maps are super fun. There are maps based on the classic TV show, the Tim Burton movie, the Christopher Nolan movies, and so much more. The kicker is, you need to do it with each Batmobile. This starts to stray into the part of achievements I don't like, where it's just log in, grind things out over and over again, and hoping that you eventually get it. But because the different Batmobiles actually play slightly different, I forgave it a little bit. The Christopher Nolan set and the original Batman set piece are probably my personal favorites, and they have the original music, which is a treat. Super fun, especially because they all play different. Brutality 101 is this game's version of the perfect free flow achievement. Because of the huge number of moves this game has compared to the others, this achievement, instead of requiring you to use a certain number of gadgets or takedowns, is only requiring you to do 15 different combat moves. With the capacity to overcharge abilities, this isn't as bad as you would think. This can be done in the story or in the AR challenges, but the Iceberg Lounge has endless enemies, so that's where I did this one. The stealth equivalent to Brutality 101 is Blunt Trauma. This achievement sees us needing to perform 1 of every Predator takedown. I found myself missing this and realizing I had missed an easy one, but it's a fun one to get naturally and encourages experimenting with new forms of play. In the same vein of Predator challenges, we have the achievement Eternal. This achievement requires us to do the Endless Night AR challenge while neutralizing 50 enemies. This is a timed challenge where each knockout adds to the existing timer. This really stresses your Predator skills, as the more you play, the more and harder enemies spawn, making almost all areas too unsafe. It's a very fun balance of anxiety and fun, and again emphasizes the ability to play skillfully within a challenge setting. I ended up getting it on my 2nd try. Fear takedowns really make the early challenge bearable, and the more you can get, the faster you get to 50. The Long Halloween is the achievement for completing the story in New Game Plus. While it's not necessarily hard, I do really like the Nightmare modifier on the story mode, and completing the story a 2nd time will always have that victory lap feeling I love. Run Through the Jungle requires us to fly under all 3 main bridges in 1 continuous glide. This one is a lot harder than I initially thought. Because of the gliding mechanics and the boost, you don't ever have to touch the ground in Gotham if you choose not to. However, this specific achievement requires doing all 3 bridges without a boost, only in a single glide. I found the only way to do this was to start from the crane on Founders Island and dive to get as much momentum as possible. The last achievement I went for in this game was, I think, the hardest one for me. Old Adversary requires you to go into the Iceberg Lounge, get above the 20 medal threshold, which is somewhere around 1 million points. Then you have to fight Killer Croc again. Just getting to 1 million points is hard. The best way to do this is to basically never drop your combo. That means making sure you are not only avoiding all damage, but are also managing enemy spawns so they don't close in and ruin your chain. Enemies can attack you with a spawn animation, drastically reducing the amount of time you have to counter or react. In addition, knife enemies sometimes catch you pressing the counter button a little too late, and if you aren't fast enough will snag you with a hit. On top of all of that, at some point they also start spawning medics, which aren't too bad by themselves. The best way to deal with them is usually to ignore and backclaw slam whoever they charge with power. Brutes, of course, are also in attendance, and I made sure to save a takedown for them whenever possible. Once your combo gets to about 300, you're receiving thousands of points on a single hit, and it's just a matter of dodging and keeping that counter high. Once you reach 20 medals, Croc will jump in, and it's exactly like the fight from his expansion. Nightwing joins the fray to help, and once Croc is unconscious on the floor, the achievement pops up, and with it, our last achievement in the game. Overall, the achievements in this game were very fun. As I've stated earlier, there are a few that require a certain number of medals, but the vast majority are challenges in the way to play or approach the game, which is so much better. That was my only real gripe with Arkham City, was just that there was so much to do that was the same thing. It also avoids problems like Arkham Origins, where you can only complete certain challenges in specific parts of the game. The process feels very streamlined for having 113 achievements. All of the challenges make sense. No changing the date to talk to Calendar Man, no save and reset to find Azrael. It's really well done. It truly feels like the culmination of the best parts of the previous games. This was a super fun game to 100%, and if you were to pick any of the Batman games to do it, I think this would be the one. Maybe Asylum if you want a really short one, but this one felt even more fun than that. That's it on achievements. It's on to our final thoughts and analysis, and we are almost done. This game was a treat from start to finish. Going into it blind was really the correct choice. I hung on to all the twists, got jump scared at all the right times, almost cried when Oracle died, and was so excited to realize that we were wrong. Before we get to super specific points of analysis, I want to talk once again about the performances in this game. Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill are truly amazing in their roles, and I could sing their praises forever. Kevin perfectly has that smidge of humor that Batman has while still keeping the dark air around him. He can carry emotion so well, especially when talking about fallen friends or when triumphing over the Joker. Truly, losing Kevin is losing a piece of Batman, and he will always be missed. Opposite Kevin is our clown prince, Mark Hamill. I don't know what else to say. He did the voice for Joker, then sang a song in that voice. That's insane. I was very surprised to hear him in this game, but I'm so glad he was here. There are so many other great performances here. Great Elise returning as Catwoman, Wally Wingert's Riddler, Jonathan Banks as Gordon, Troy Baker as Two-Face and Jason Todd, Matt Mercer as Tim Drake, John Noble as Scarecrow, Nolan North's Penguin, Ashley Green's Barbara, and honestly, everyone in this game absolutely stepped it up. I also want to pay a special thank you to all of the unnamed B characters like goons, guards, and militiamen who do a great job in their roles as well. Truly, the Batman games would not have the humor they do without those characters. On the subject of audio, the music in this game is top-notch. Inner Demon, the track from the mixing room, you're welcome for finding it by the way, as well as half the soundtrack immediately became some of my favorite music from any Arkham game. Nick Arundel returned, and with David Buckley helping, they created something truly special. Graphics in this game also saw a huge upgrade from the previous titles. Fly anywhere in this game in the rain and you'll see how smooth this game feels, even all these years later. Moving on from technical aspects of the game, let's talk mechanic changes. Enemy diversity in this game saw a huge uptick, especially for Predator challenges, which is where the previous games were lacking. Arkham Asylum saw normal goons with a few flavors, notably stabby and spicy, with the crazed runners and the Titan henchmen, but that was pretty much it. Arkham Knight has normal goons, knife goons, shock goons, medic goons, sneaky goons, brutes, armored brutes, juggernauts with miniguns, shieldy boys, ninjas, a bunch of reptile-themed drones, and more that I probably haven't thought of. The series really has come a long way with enemies that get thrown at you that now you have to play around all of them. The enemy types feel natural, not just thrown in to have a new flavor, but they feel like they make sense with the world. Just as the enemy diversity has increased, so too has Batman's power. I haven't talked much about leveling in any of these games, but Arkham Knight's process for it is really the best. We have a huge increase to upgrades to both gadgets, Batman himself, new combos, overcharged gadgets, and all of that is miles better than the previous games. You get medals for progressing in quests, and that's what you spend on levels, which I think is absolutely genius. Directly in line with upgrades, we have the Batmobile. I know some people don't like it, but honestly, what else did you want? The fast travel system in Origins was not good, and actually getting to drive in the Bat tank is a blast. If the argument is you spend too much time in the tank, Most of the time you don't have to, and the beats where the story requires it aren't that long. If you are going for a completionist, I get that you do spend a lot more of the game in the Batmobile, but you're also playing so much more of the game anyway. Besides, the tank isn't the only way to get around. Gliding saw massive updates in this game. There are several levels of boost that you can do depending on how many times you press the button while grappling up to a ledge. Not pressing it will simply pull you on top, pressing it twice gives you a small boost, and pressing it up to 4 times will send you soaring into the air. This can also happen from the car. Holding A will let you glide and eject from the car, and upgrades let you go even higher and faster. Truly, you can get around from one side of the map to the other in such more creative ways than we've seen in any of the other games. I know I joked in the other games that Batman was falling with style, but here he really is flying. Stealth gadgets got upgrades with the disruptor, voice synthesizer, and the remote hacking device, and all of Batman's kit was generally improved, which is good, as some of the upgrades in the past I thought were a little bit much. Looking at you, Electrocutioner's gloves. Combat also gets a much needed twist with the inclusion of medics, brutes, takedowns, and duo fights. Environmental takedowns allow for some really fun play patterns, and you can use the Batmobile in fistfights, which is also absolutely hilarious. From a purely mechanical sense, Arkham Knight was an upgrade in basically every department. Now let's rip apart some of the small things. This next rant is the writing major in me, so if this isn't your jam, you might want to skip ahead a couple minutes. What does the Batman represent? One of the big turning points in the game is dealing with all the Joker's manifestations inside of the other characters suffering from the blood sickness. Each represents a specific aspect. King, Joker's strength, charisma, his showmanship, Belle, her lust for Batman, and Henry, his deceptiveness. But what then does the Batman represent? I think it's left for interpretation, but let me interject mine. If we follow along with the Joker's narrative of Batman and Joker being two sides of the same coin, then you could always say Batman is actually just what Joker represents if he had a moral code. Just as we see in the stories that Batman is unlike the Joker primarily because he doesn't kill. That is what makes the scene where he finally does so impactful. It's releasing himself of the restraint that would turn him into Joker. I think the second half of the narrative, especially after Batman's interaction with Fear Toxin, he's almost afraid of himself. That now he knows he could cross that line, and in doing so, not really let the Joker's psyche come into control, but become more like it. Almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know which of those is actually worse for the Batman, but I believe the second. I do love the narrative aspects of this game where we're not explicitly told things. Following in the same vein, I saw a lot of critiques online for the Joker hallucinations near the end of the game. Think of it this way. Scarecrow injects Batman with toxin, thus letting the Joker currently take over Batman because his psyche is weakened. This is what we see when Joker is on the gurney. He is currently in control. In fact, Joker thinks himself not only immune to the fear toxin, but fueled by it. But he's also proven wrong. When Scarecrow injects into Joker, we go inside his mind. That is when we learned his fear is being forgotten, and the vessel of that fear is Batman. The Joker psyche is far weaker than he thinks it is. And that is what lets the Batman persona prevail. I missed this the first time around, as I was just lost in the whirlwind that was the ending, but it's one of those things that gets better the more you look at it. I've already mentioned it a few times, but let's talk about side quest integration. One of my gripes with the previous games was that side quests sometimes felt shoehorned in. Not that this game doesn't have a few of those, but most notable and important side objectives are tied into the story. We cannot miss the Riddler as he appears as we raise the bridge to Miagani Island. It fits into the natural flow of the game. We don't have to complete them right as you get them, but at least you know they're there. Unlike Arkham City, which had a quest that required you to go look at a map and then go to a place you already cleared just to get an upgrade. The side quests here just fit. The game world changes subtly as the game progresses. Buildings that were on fire get put out. Militia presence visibly lessens as the drones are destroyed and the watchtowers are taken down. Ivy's plants persist after being summoned, and as she passes, spores fall from the sky, like the snow replacing the rain after we complete the Mr. Freeze DLC. Subtle changes like this give you a feeling that your actions are physically changing the game world. A far more visible representation of this idea is the GCPD lockup. Over the course of the game, supervillains will be placed in the high security box and will remain there for the rest of the game. This is accompanied by a ticker box that will go up for all spots in that cell. The ticker nearby also shows how many cells are taken in general, and the cells do fill up as the game goes on. It fills with things like gang members from the various busts, APC lieutenants, and more. There are some funny interactions you can do with them too. Another not so hidden gem is the Armory Room. This holds memorabilia from previous bosses and lets you listen to audio logs narrated by Aaron Cash talking about them. It's a fun walk through memory lane from previous games. Closing time. It feels like the end of an era for me finishing this first series of games. I'm so happy this was the first one, and I really don't think there was a better choice. I am regretting the tier list for this one, not because the game is bad, but because I think this actually overtook Arkham City for me. I am putting it in S tier. Right now, it's above City, but if you ask me a week from now, I think they could switch. These two are so close, and they bring so much to the franchise that I can't quite say one is better. I think this is the best blind gaming experience I've had in years, and the more I just dove into it, the better the experience was. Arkham Knight is not a perfect game, but man is it close. It scares me playing other superhero games after this one, and I know I will eventually, but this series and the Arkhamverse in general really feels like the gold standard. Thanks for sticking with me for the Arkham games. The next episode, we will be tackling the first game in another series of 4, again, semi-rodent themed, Dishonored. We'll see if my Batman stealth skills transfer over. If you like this project and want to keep tabs on it, please consider hitting the subscribe button. The YouTube algorithm really likes it if you hit the like button, so try that one too so it reaches more people. Once again, this has been Rednalus, and thank you so much for watching the list. Have a great day, everybody.